bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Today is Tuesday, February 13th, 2018. 44 days into the new year, just 321 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How are you doing? All right. Settle down. It's time to do what we're going to do tonight, which is we're going to have a very special John Anthony West tribute show tonight with our guests, Robert Schoch and Chance Gardner. First up tonight will be Robert Schoch live from Boston, and then Chance Gardner in the second hour live from Australia. Robert Schoch worked with and was the research partner with John Anthony West since 1991 or thereabouts. Tonight we will nail that official date down, right? And so there you go there. And then Chance Gardner, the director of Magical Egypt 1 and 2 with John Anthony West. And we've had both of them on the show before. And tonight there is, I just can't think of two closer friends and partners with John Anthony West than these two gentlemen, Robert Schoch and Chance Gardner. So tonight we're going to have some fun. Okay? Now, I'm going to do my best to tell some pretty funny John Anthony West stories. And this is probably going to be repeated many, many times tonight. In that John would not, I can only imagine the string of bad words that would come out of his mouth if we did anything tonight that was a bummer, right? That would be sad, melancholy. He does not play that way. So we are not going to play that way tonight. It's just the way that he was and is, and that's it. I don't need something to fall on my head in the bunker because we went the wrong direction. That's not the way to do it. Okay, so that's what we're going to do tonight. I've got many stories and experiences with John over the years, and phone calls and interviews and hanging out and all that stuff. So tonight we're going to air that dirty laundry. We're going to have some fun. Okay, so Robert Schoch, Chance Gardner are here. Tomorrow night on the show, a very special Fader night. Tomorrow night, where it is Valentine's Day, and so we've got that going for us, right? But the Conscious Life Expo just wrapped, And so we've got all of our images together. We're still collecting from those out there. If you have any images from Conscious Life Expo that you would like us to see and maybe get on the show tomorrow night, we'll run it all through Twitter. Email them to us. You can email them to Rita at jimmychurchradio.com or myself, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. The alternative, if you so desire, is you can post them in Twitter tomorrow night during the show, and I'll comment on the pics as they pop up. And definitely post them in Fade to Black F2BQ, because that runs a lot slower than F2B, right, in Twitter. So there you go. So that's what we're going to do tomorrow night. And then Thursday night, now here we go. Thursday is Richard Dolan. Richard Dolan will be here analyzing the Richard Doty surprise phone call. And I will be analyzing it along with Richard. I've gone back and listened to it. Lots of interesting information in there that was just kind of tucked away. So that'll be there. And also Tom DeLonge. That will also be discussed, I am sure, at length on Thursday night. So that we've shifted up the schedule a little bit. But we had to do that because Dolan is traveling. Okay, so he's going to be traveling tomorrow, and he doesn't get back until Thursday. So that's why we had to shift everything around this week. Okay? All right. Now, also, later on tonight, I'm going to open up the phone lines for you, and we'll do that with Chance Gardner, and we'll swing that all the way to the end of the show. So if you have a John Anthony West story, did you meet him, what happened, and you'd like to call in and share that experience with us, we can do that. And certainly if you would just like to call in and say, yo, Jaws, what's up? You can do that too as well. Okay, so we'll do that a little bit later on tonight. We'll open up the phones. So there you go. This will be a fun night. I want it to be uplifting, and I want it to be the way that John would want this played out. And I really mean that. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so if you think I'm going all somber, nah, it ain't that kind of party. It's a John Anthony West tribute. Okay, follow me on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. Simple. At JChurchRadio. Follow me right there. I'm really big, and man, I've got something in my throat. Hold on. Nothing fixes my throat like River Moon coffee. I swear. It's an antidote. It's an antidote. It's an antidote. Yeah, man. Love it. Okay. Where was I just going? Oh, Twitter. I'm a big social media. If you hang out and see what I do over on Facebook on my personal page, you can tell right there and Twitter that I'm a big social media person. And I can't respond to everything because that would be my entire day. But I like hanging out on social media. I like hearing what you have to say. I like to post stuff about myself and what me and the family are doing and my concerns of this community. So there you go. So follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. And you can also, I think my Facebook page is full, but you can follow me on Facebook. You can certainly go and do that and check out all of the images that were posted over there. They're really, really, really cool. And, oh, look at this. Okay, see, this is what I'm talking about. You guys, yeah, I saw these images earlier today. These are really, really good. And these were posted by, man, who posted these? Who took these? He sent me these in email today. I think it was, Michael McClooney. Michael, these are really, really good pics. Thank you for that. And thank you for the email today, too, as well. Very cool. But both of those images are great. And that picture of Linda with the Jim Mars Jaws hats is priceless. And for me, because I know, me personally, I've hung out with Linda and Jaws together, right? They were great friends, and I've hung out with Linda and Jim Mars together. And I know how close she was with the both of them. And that picture, for me, means a lot because the four of us have done our share of hanging out together. That's a great picture. Thank you for that. Just an amazing image. And I'm going to retweet that. That's pretty cool. Okay. All right. So where am I? Where was I going? What was next? Oh, okay. So social media. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. If you do have some Jaws picks that you want us to see and stuff, you can post those tonight too as well. Some have already floated through on Twitter, and they are just absolutely incredible. And this one from Arnold, these are great, man. Above the boat at the Great Pyramid, and this is the museum outside, and there's Jaws right there, and there's Arnold. This is a great pick, man. That is really cool. Look at the size of those stones. Man, that's just incredible. Great pick. Great image of the boat, too, as well. Mind-blowing. And I'm going to retweet that, too. Okay, so tonight, our John Anthony West tribute. And, again, if you've got anything that you would like us to see, post it up on Twitter. I would like to see it. And Jaws. That's cool. Did you just whip this one out? It's so cool. Oh, man. Look at that. That's well done, my friend. That is well done. Jaws on the Jaws. That's pretty cool with the Sphinx. That's pretty cool. That's well done. I might have to steal that and use that a little bit later. That's pretty cool. Okay. Where am I at? Oh, don't forget, I need to remind everybody, our Soul Tech gathering up at East Eddy Ranch this August. Now, I said the exact same words last night, and I'm going to have to say them again tonight. Last night I said that we had a few of the passes left that were discounted, the first 50. I said that there were 3 left. Well, as it turns out overnight with the way that the applications went through, as of today, because we had those signups yesterday, we had 47 again today. Okay, so it got reshuffled, and we gained 3 more. Now, I don't know if they're still available now, but about 2 hours ago before showtime, there was still 3 left, and then we just change gears and go normal. And, Rita just said 3 left. Okay, so that's official. That's in real time. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, go and do it now. Do it now because it's going to be done in the next few minutes. Okay? All right, Soul Tech Gathering, August 9th through the 12th, East Eddy Ranch. It's going to be amazing. More on that in the weeks and days ahead. Our next event is going to be June 1st through the 4th, 2018. We're going to be at Contact in the Desert in Indian Wells, Palm Springs, Southern California, at the Renaissance Resort and Spa. And if you just go to, I don't know if we have the links up right now at jimmychurchradio.com, but we'll get them up by tomorrow for Contact in the Desert. You can certainly just go to contactinthedesert.com and look at, they've got a pre-schedule up, so you can kind of take a look at that and a list of speakers, and there's more to be added, but go and check it out and see how it's set up right now. It's absolutely amazing. True 5-star resort. Okay, so there you go. Contact in the Desert, the premier UFO event on the entire planet. Palm Springs, June 1st through the 4th. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We have over 800 archive shows. Custom apps, Apple, Android, everything is there. All platforms, Kindle, everything that you need. $2 a month. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner, sign up today. And you can also become a Fadernaut over in our membership section on the site. Not the same as the podcast. The podcast is the podcast. But if you want to become an official Fadernaut, you get a private email to me. You can get the bunker cam. You can get commercial-free downloadable archives. You can even get autographed shirts and hats. Okay, and those hats. Now, check this out. So, Conscious Life Expo was this weekend. Ask me how many hats we sold. Say, how many hats did you sell, Jimmy? None. We don't sell those hats. Those hats are for Fadernauts, for Game Changers. And that is it. And you can get yours right now in the membership section on the site. All right, don't forget to check out all of our sponsors. Life Change Tea, hung out with Ronnie all weekend. River Moon Coffee, hung out with Juanita and Jeff all weekend. New Pharma, Chip Paul, hung out with him all weekend. So cool to hang out with them. Of course, Ancient Life Oil. Man, we got some new Ancient Life Oil here in the bunker. Very cool. And Numana Food Storage, Bearing Optics, Sacred Skulls. Visit all of our sponsors. That's how this show runs for you for free every single night. That's how it's done. Let's get this show cracking. Happy birthday to today. Shock the Monkey. Peter Gabriel is 68. Henry Rollins, Black Flag, is 57. Man, that dude's got a neck. Henry, he does. Henry Rollins has got a neck. Henry Rollins today is 57. Punk rock legend. Singer Robbie Williams. What was the name of his band, that UK band? They were like Boys to Men. What was the name of that? One for All. What was the name of Robbie Williams' band? I can't remember. Take, Talk. I can't remember. But today he's 44. What's cool about Robbie, he's got pipes, but he's a fully engaged ufologist. Robbie Williams today is 44. Peter Tork, the Monkees, today is 76. Stockard Channing today is 74. Now, I'm going to make a comment about this because Stockard Channing, and Rita knows, I hold Stockard Channing up there with any of the great actors in all of history. She's just amazingly talented. And of course, Rizzo in Grease. I understand that. She was amazing in 6 Degrees of Separation. Disturbing flick, right? Amazing performance. But that wasn't her best. And she's still like, that wasn't her best. Her best is a movie from, had to be the early 70s. And it's a movie called that I never forgot. The first time that I saw it when I was a kid, and I've watched it so many times since, is a movie called The Girl Most Likely To. And if you've never seen it, watch it. And after watching that movie, and she was a kid when that was made, watch that. And if you don't agree with me after that flick, that she isn't one of the greatest of all time, period, right? Go check it out. The Girl Most Likely To. Yeah, amazing. Disturbing film. Disturbing. It's cool. She is somebody that, especially back in the 70s, where political correctness was not part of the game. So you would call her ugly. She had plastic surgery. Right? And then she comes out of the plastic surgery beautiful. But before the plastic surgery, she was mistreated and it wasn't cool. And the people that weren't cool to her in her life because of her face, and then what she did with them afterwards when she was good looking and attractive, same personality, same person, and what she does, it's just an amazing flick. The Girl Most Likely To. Go check it out. On this day in history, one of the big days in 1633, Galileo arrives in Rome to face charges of heresy. That's right, for advocating the Copernican theory, right? Which said that the earth revolves around the sun. And what happened? Convicted, house arrest in his villa in Florence until he died. And that happened today on this day in history in 1633. Fader fact. Okay. Listen to me. This is a Fader fact. And some Fader facts just don't make sense. But that doesn't mean they are not true. This is true. And this is the fact that you can win money on. You can win a bet with this. Well, unless the other person is listening to this show. So be careful with that. But nonetheless, are you ready? The can opener was not invented until 50 years after the invention of canned food. Now, you would think it'd be the same day. But no, the can opener was not invented until 50 years after the invention of canned food. And some things you just can't make up. As crazy as that sounds, that is a Fader fact. Now go win some money. All right, tonight we're going to do, we have two very special guests, Robert Schoch and Chance Gardner here for our John Anthony West special tribute. And this is the deal. We're just gonna talk. We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna share some images. We're going to tell some stories, experiences, and just things. We're gonna talk about the life and times of the one and only, the great John Anthony West. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow night is Fader night, and although it is Valentine's Day, tomorrow we're going to be doing a Conscious Life Expo recap. We have dozens and dozens and dozens of picks that we're going to go through and tell some stories. A lot of amazing stuff went down. Some of it I've talked about. We'll talk about it again tomorrow night, but it was an extraordinary conference. The Fadernauts were out in full force. Great speakers, great events. We had our pre-event over at the house, and then we moved everything down to the LAX Hilton, and it was a great time had by all. Okay? So that will be tomorrow. Thursday night, Richard Dolan is here, and we're going to review and analyze the Richard Doty phone call, the surprise call into Fade to Black last week. We're going to do that and also talk a little Tom DeLonge. Okay? All right. With that, I've got to hit this coffee. Got to. Oh. Love my Fade to Black blend by River Moon Coffee. Okay. Oh, really? Really? Okay. Rita, can I say that now, or do I have to save that for later? Man, that's a Fader fact. She just whipped one out. Is that right? Okay, I'm going to save that for a bit. I'll wait for your response. Okay, I wanted to speak very directly about Tom DeLonge and To the Stars. And I am going to write this up, and I will have everything a little bit more concise and stuff and laid out and posted tomorrow. And if anybody questions you or my position on the show, you'll be able to direct them to the website, and everything will be open. Okay? It'll be there. And it's this. I am human. Okay? I'm human, just like everybody else. And I do my best to research, to see through things, to try to find the right answers, and to make sure that the stuff that I have on this show is represented correctly. Okay, that is always our goal. I'm a human. I can make mistakes. And the mistake that I made with Tom DeLonge is the same error. Mine was a mistake. His was an error. And I'm not sure why. In showing the UFO community a picture of a balloon. Now, Tom's error was trying to show that picture during his live video press conference when he was opening that day stocks for sale to the public in To the Stars Academy for a price, and having a picture of a helium mylar balloon up in back of him, and Chris Mellon, and representing that as a UFO and UFO technology. And so invest into To the Stars Academy because of things like this in that picture. Okay, now, my mistake, and to be clear here, I want for transparency, the two videos which were later posted, the gimbal footage and the Tic Tac footage, may be real. And I hope that it hasn't been 100% verified, but it looks authentic, certainly. May be real, and I hope that it is. But at that time, they were not in possession of those videos. The only thing that they had to show to us at that time, and if they had something else to show, they didn't show it, and they probably should have. But that color Tic Tac picture was actually a helium balloon. My mistake was not vetting that source. I want to be clear. It's very simple to grab that image, right-click on it, and check out Google, which is what I do. And I do it with everything. I've been busted before. And this one time that I didn't do it, got caught. I'm human. I made that mistake. And and I've got a few emails that pointed out the fact that I went live on Saturday night and the day of disclosure, December 16th, that this was the biggest day ever. And if anybody is going to talk smack about Tom DeLonge, they are jealous, right? See, so the difference is that wasn't my point. That wasn't my point at all. And at that time, those videos were not out. My point that I had made, which I still stand by, it does not change, is that DeLonge pushing this into the mass media and having the mass media talk about this and having it out in front and revealing the things about the Pentagon and Senator Harry Reid and this video footage and pushing this agenda forward is huge. And it's a difficult thing to do. That is not my point, and that has never been my point ever, was to discount any of that. My point, and I want to drive this home, is that when I did the Days of Disclosure special and everything was open for TTSA and the purchasing of stock, that video footage was not released. Don't confuse the issue. It was not out. It wasn't out for 2 months. And at that point, the only thing that they represented to the Stars Academy was a balloon picture. And when you have a scientist and a guy from the Pentagon and CIA and then Skunk Works and physicists and biochem and all of the stuff that is the personnel and the staff and the team of TTSA, and nobody could figure out or knew how to figure out that was a Mylar balloon when it's their job to investigate alien technology, that's my point. And that I won't let go. And we will discuss this more on Thursday night. But that is my position, and tomorrow I will release an official statement, and I will make it very, very clear. I want answers out of DeLonge. Haven't gotten those, and I think that there is something here. And I think it's a very, very big deal, and it's not to be dismissed. This isn't a mistake. Let's forget about it and move on. That is not the case. All right? There you go. All right. Fade to Black tonight, our John Anthony West tribute special. Our guest tonight, Robert Schoch. He'll be up here in a second, a little bit later. Chance Gardner joins the show live from Australia. Robert Schoch is going to be here from Boston. And so we're going to do the life and times. We have lots of really cool photographs and images and stories. We're going to do all of that tonight with the two guys that knew him best. Okay? All right. We'll be right back with our first guest, Dr. Robert Schoch. It's Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. This is Bespoke Radio for the masses. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Natural Health Solutions with Chris and Ronnie.
Hey, Ronnie, how you doing?
Great, Chris.
Now, you're the CEO of GetTheTea.com, right?
Yes, I am.
What is GetTheTea.com? I mean, is this tea you buy in a store?
Well, no, it's not. Life Change Tea is just that. Life-changing. Life Change Tea is an herbal tea that gently cleanses your body from intruders.
What do you mean by intruders?
Well, intruders are toxins, chemicals, GMOs, heavy metals, and more. They're in our food, in our water, in our air we breathe.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
And Life Change Tea will help you with removing these, as you say, intruders?
That's right, Chris.
Are there side effects with this tea?
Well, you might lose a little weight. When you clean your colon, you lose weight, you feel better, and you have more energy.
Wow. Ronnie, where can people purchase Life Change Tea?
Oh, that's easy. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com.
Ronnie, I want to thank you for being on the show. People, don't forget, GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA. The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at KGRAradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. KGRAradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight is our John Anthony West special tribute. Our first guest up tonight is Dr. Robert Schoch, who worked with Mr. West for the last 30 years, research partner, brother, family member. And this is the deal. Dr. Robert Schoch, geologist, Boston University, Stanford, Harvard, Moscow State University, University of Paris, London. I think he got his doctorate in Grenada. How are you doing, Dr. Schoch?
Well, that was an interesting introduction.
You know what I did? I had like 30 universities here listed. Right, I was going to read through them all just for fun, but
just for fun.
You know, this is, but seriously, when you look, even for you, when you look at your CV and you look at the amount of education that you have behind you at the most prestigious schools on the planet, right? Does it does it impress you?
Yeah, sometimes I look and say, who is that person?
Right. It's no joke. I had read, before we move on, I had read, this is a few months ago, and I did it as a Fader fact on the show, that 80% of the doctorate degrees in the United States are fake. Right.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. Here's a fun fact along those lines. There was a faculty member in my college at Boston University. I mean, we don't like to advertise this, but I'll say this here.
Right.
And he was there. I forget how many years. And it turned out he did not have a PhD. He had actually gone to a good university. He had done a dissertation, supposedly, but it turned out he had plagiarized a good chunk of it. And he I can't remember if he didn't have a PhD. I think he actually got his PhD, and then they rescinded it because of that.
Right.
And
It's hard.
But it is very, very common, and I've been on search committees and whatnot, that you get applicants. If you don't vet them properly, people will put on their application that they have a PhD from this or that place, and it's not uncommon that you look into it and it's fake. And then, of course, there's also the diploma mill PhDs.
Right. Okay. Well, let me jump in really quick. I have gone to vet a few different people, right, in this area without naming names. And let me tell you, you cannot, a university, you can't prove or disprove it. A university will not release that information to you. You know who they release it to? The person whose name it's under.
Really?
But
really, I didn't even know that because
No.
I've never personally worried about that. But I do know with it between universities, you can get the information.
Right. Okay. At that
Yeah,
official
so
level.
that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because if one university is trying to hire someone, they want to know whether it's real or not.
Right. But the person on the street, and you want. And you want to go and vet somebody's background, and they say that they have a doctor from a university, that's a clampdown. You cannot get that information.
Boy, I didn't realize that because, of course, I'm still in academia.
Right.
I say still. I've been in academia all my life. And actually, I wanted to turn this to John Anthony West, something that I honestly regret. I'll say it that way, but it's not my fault. Despite the fact that he was legendary for despising universities and academia, and he, of course, used the term quackademic for the academics. And, this is absolutely legendary. Anyone who knew John Anthony West.
Absolutely.
And, he never called me a quackademic. I've got to say that. He always respected me, but, of course, we were on the same side. But something he actually would have liked, and he and I spoke about this, and he would joke about it, but I know he was genuine about it, and I was hoping if he lived long enough and we were totally vindicated, which I think we have been totally vindicated as far as the Sphinx and whatnot, I wanted to get him a honorary PhD, which would be, great for him to thumb his nose at the quackademics, including the ones, as you say, that they actually don't have PhDs, or people that claim they don't have PhDs, to have him recognized that way.
We should push some. We should push that. That's another discussion for another time.
Like a posthumous one.
Yeah. Would that be just amazing?
Yeah, it would be. But I was hoping, of course, I was hoping within his lifetime.
I know.
But even posthumously, it would be something.
If we pulled that off, something is going to fall on your head in your office. You're not even going to be looking.
Yeah, the problem is I actually don't know any precedents off the top of my head for doing it posthumously. It's just like Nobel Prizes. They don't give them posthumously.
Right. We should look into that, though. That would be a lot of fun if we could pull that off. I think,
that would be fun.
I mean, nobody's more deserving, certainly, than John Anthony West.
Well, I was going to say something, and that's one reason that he and I got along so well together, and I would say bonded almost immediately, is despite his facade, despite what people might think about him who don't know him well, he was an absolutely meticulous scholar. He could put the classic academics to shame in terms of his research, his scholarship, his meticulousness. So, when he called people out and criticized them, I'm talking about academics now,
right.
He knew what he was doing. He was coming from a very strong stance.
I wanted to do this. I want to get the sad, solemn part out of this show out of the way. So let's get, because we're going to
have the sad, solemn part right now. I have to admit, I'll be blunt, he was my really close friend. We started out as colleagues. I did hear the introduction to your show, and you were wondering about when we first met, that type of thing.
Right.
It was back in the 1980s. Our serious collaboration began in 1990 when he and I traveled to Egypt together.
Okay. And
that's when the serious collaboration began, but I knew him already at that point for some time. We first met in the 80s. So, and we really, we got along right away. There was just something there. I think we both saw something in the other one that we realized that
he had a knack for that.
There was a spark there. And
right.
He had that there.
He had a knack for that. And if he didn't like you...
Oh, you knew it right away.
You knew that too as well.
Yeah. He was brutally honest, brutally blunt about things, and he wasn't political about it most times. I mean, I saw him in many situations where he told someone exactly what he thought of them or thought of their theory or whatever it might be, even to the point that, look, this guy's hosting us. He just paid our way here to see his whatever. Couldn't you put it in a little bit softer terms without being dishonest? No, that was not West. He was just straightforward and got to the point.
Last week when the news had broke about his passing, I reached out to you. I didn't want to say anything until I got an official confirmation. Yeah. And I had nobody else to call but you. I called the family, but I couldn't get through, understandably so.
Understandably, yeah.
And so I called you, and I didn't. The internet has a way of spreading rumor, and I didn't want to be part of anything like that. So I called you, and tell, if you can, just for a second, share with us at that moment when you got the news and what his passing meant to you.
Well, I cried.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be blunt. I cried, and I've been crying. This is the sad part. I know you want it to be uplifting.
No, let's get this part out of the way, Robert. Let's get this out of the way.
I mean, he was a really close friend. He was, at many levels, my closest friend, I would say. Even though we were a generation apart, he was the same. My father is still alive. He's the same. I'm still saying he's the same. He was the same age. I'm still not quite... it's not fully sank in.
Right.
I think it takes time to realize that someone's gone. And no, I've been going up and down. It's been a roller coaster for me. Yeah, no, I'll be honest. I've shed a lot of tears over this, and
everybody has, and you know what? Although he would know that people are doing this, but he would also.
Oh, he wouldn't want it. He wouldn't want it. I can hear him, chiding me for what the hell are you doing, Schoch? You don't need to cry.
Right. And he wouldn't be.
I can hear that, but I still feel bad.
He wouldn't be using the word hell either. So
what?
He wouldn't be using the word hell. It would be another.
Oh, it would be nastier. I toned it down because I never could speak the way he did. Yeah. It's just not my nature. That was strong for me. And just as a side comment, just for as we talk here, a lot of people called him John or Jaws or Jaw or whatever. Just so you know, because I'll probably revert to it, I always called him West, and he always called me Schoch.
Yes.
So it was West and Schoch between us. Once in a while, I might refer to him as John, when we were in company or, where other people were around. But even then, I think referred to him as West. And I don't remember a single time he ever called me Robert.
No, in all of my conversations with him about you were always Schoch.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I'm Schoch and he's West. That's how it always was.
Well, how Jaws came about, let me tell you how that happened. That happened because of his email, which was
exactly.
John Anthony was a Jaws Sphinx, right?
Yeah, JAW, which are his initials, John Anthony West Sphinx.
Sphinx.
So Jaws.
Jaws.
Yeah.
And so I picked up on that. And one day we were on a phone call, and I had something open in front of me, which had his email. Him and I were sitting here talking. And I go, Jaws, listen. And it was only because I was reading his email, and he laughed, and he goes, wow, that kind of, that works, right? And so,
it works. It has a ring to it.
Right. And so that's how that started. And I said, you know what, man, you're Jaws from now on. And he just laughed. He goes, I'm good with that.
Yeah, it's great.
A couple of
years. It's great, but going much further back, of course, he and I were referring to each other as West and Schoch. I mean, literally from the day we met.
He had said to me, he goes, somebody had sent me an email, which I had read to him, and it said, Jimmy, you're calling Jaws, John Anthony West Jaws during a conversation. It is immense disrespect. So I read the email to John, and I'm not going to tell you what he said, but it was bleep, 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 bleep that person. Man, you want to call me Jaws? Call me Jaws. And so he was Jaws to us ever since, and so that's where that came from. It was just me absent-mindedly responding to his phone call, and Jaws came out of my mouth, and he's been Jaws ever since to us, and there you go. Yeah. So that's where that came from. So, yeah, you were
I think he liked that. He liked it.
Yeah. Now,
it's just unique. I mean, who else is called that? And also, it has a certain, I don't know. I mean, if you really think about it, it's not only his initials, but sort of conjures up things. It's a good moniker.
Have you seen? I'm going to send this to you. There's this meme going around right now with John's picture on the Jaws poster. So his face is replacing the shark.
Oh,
right?
Wow. Because I was just thinking of something like that.
Yeah, and then up on top.
Yeah. Oh, you have to send that to me. Send it to my email.
I'm going to do it right now. Rita, send it to Robert's email, would you? And it's amazing. But the girl at the top that the shark is about to bite,
yeah,
her face has been replaced with the Sphinx head.
That's great.
It's awesome. Absolutely awesome. Okay, let's do that. I want to start here. Let's just start right here. What is the one personal, not the one, that may be too personal, but what's the one thing about John that only you know, that you can share with us right now? What's
I
that?
Don't know.
Oh, I know
only
that.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably a lot of things that only I know, and I don't know that I'd want to share them. I don't know. That's a tough one, because not only you try and make me think of something only I know, but then you want me to tell the entire world.
And he always made me laugh. And what did he do to make you laugh?
What did he do to make me laugh? I don't know. I mean, we had so many things where we laughed. He had this, incredible sense of humor. I mean, he really was a humorist and satire, and I would, be all serious about things, whether it's doing geologizing, as he used to call it, or something else. And then he would just make these very dry comments sometimes that would, were hysterical in hindsight. But what was really bad or interesting is I didn't always get them right away. And then he would think that was very funny. But
yeah, it's for me. There was okay. Maybe I'll stir your memory by
stir my memory, but I got to think of things I want to say on the air too.
Okay, that's fine. And you know what? There's nothing. There's nothing that he wouldn't say. Yeah, well, okay, that's cool. I mean,
Yeah, that's probably true.
It would really have to go pretty far for him to be offended. But is this during our first interview? the very first time, leading up to the show, which was really, really cool. Just like you were just saying, we bonded out of the gate, right? So we had this thing, and we just got each other. Our personalities matched, right? So we talked, and I couldn't get him off of the phone. And it was a really funny situation where he was constantly calling me with other ideas. And when he gets you on the phone, it's a difficult thing to get him off of the phone. He loves to just create and talk about history and things. So we talked and we talked and we talked. Now, leading up to so because of all of that, he was so excited about coming on the show. And he had said to me that night, that day, I said, okay, we're going to do 2 hours. And then he goes, 2 hours? I can't get things done in 2 hours. I'm just getting warmed up. I said, how about 2.5? He goes, how long's the show? I said, 3. He goes, I want all 3, right? I said, wow.
That's typical.
Right.
That was so typical.
Yeah. I said, okay, all right, you got it, man. 3 hours.
Now, did you have to come off at 3 hours?
Yeah, no. I do believe I went over with him a couple of times.
I was going to say, because I have had many times at conferences and whatnot where literally he goes, he was supposed to speak for an hour, say. 2.5 hours later, they're really trying to get him off the stage because other people have to speak and whatnot. And I've seen some cases where, the moderator or the organizer goes up trying to pull him off, and the audience is going on and on about, no, leave him, we want to hear him, etc.
Right.
He was incredible that way. But yeah, once you got him started, he liked to talk, and the thing is, he had a lot to say. He always had a lot to say.
And so this is what he did to me. So about an hour and a half into the show, we're doing our thing, and I hear in the background ice tinkling in a glass. Right? and this goes on for about 10 minutes. And I'm thinking, he's drinking, right? And so I said, Josh, I said, what are you drinking? He goes, vodka. I said, on the show, of course, man. And I said, okay. I believe I whipped out some vodka too, and we continued the show that way. But that was him. He doesn't care. He doesn't care what people think.
He loved his vodka. So here you're making me think of things that maybe most people wouldn't know. I don't know if it's something only I know. It's certainly not something only I know. But when we would travel, for instance, he liked his vodka, and he didn't like just any vodka. He had certain vodkas he liked and he didn't like, blah, 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 and not all vodka's the same. He taught me to appreciate vodka, maybe somewhat to my detriment, but I could never drink the way he drinks. I mean, I would literally tell him, and it's true, if I tried to drink, anywhere close to what he could handle, it would literally kill me. It would put me under.
Right.
But we would travel. So when we traveled, and I think this is no disrespect to him, when we would travel, we'd land somewhere, and the first thing we'd do, in the airport, is we had to get a few liters of vodka, depending on how long the stay was. And sometimes, you could only buy so many bottles per person. So I'd have to make sure I bought some under my passport. He'd have to get some under his passport, just to make sure that we had enough. And then another vodka story. We went to Göbekli Tepe. I know you like Göbekli Tepe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is our first trip, John West and I, and Katie was there too, my wife. For those, you know Katie, of course, for those people who don't know who Katie is, Catherine Ulysses, my wife, the three of us traveled with a friend who is Turkish, a mutual friend. We went to Turkey. This is in 2010 because we all wanted to go visit Göbekli Tepe. It ties in with the research, etc. So we fly to Turkey. We go to Istanbul, to Gaziantep. We have a car. It's night. We're driving from Gaziantep to Urfa. The car breaks down. It's, nighttime, super dark. Myself and our driver and our mutual friend who's traveling with us, we're trying to figure out what's wrong with the car, et cetera, et cetera. John West, he wasn't so worried about that. He pulls out his big bottle of 100 proof vodka we had just gotten and just takes it and relaxes while we figure out what's going on. Eventually we got everything sorted out and got to Urfa and saw Göbekli Tepe the next day or whatever, but he was just calmed, relaxed, he had the vodka, everything was fine.
Was that when the famous Urfa Man picture was taken with yourself?
Yeah. Well, there's several Urfa Man pictures with myself, but certainly one of them is from that trip, yeah.
Really quick, we're going to be headed towards a break right here, and I wanted to know if the GoFundMe is still up, and do we still need to get that out there for him? Yeah, there's a GoFundMe that's up. I think there's actually 2 different versions of it, but as far as I know, yeah, they're still active. And it's the one from the family.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. There's, I think, a GoFundMe, and then a GoFundMe Panama, because at the very end everyone was hoping that the cancer was being beaten, if we could put it that way, that the cancer is being overcome, but his body was so weak, and they wanted to maybe try some stem cell regenerative therapy, that type of thing.
Right. Okay.
But ultimately, his body couldn't take it, and he let go.
Well, we'll continue this in a second, and we will also get the correct links up there for a GoFundMe. In the meantime, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue the life and times of the one and only John Anthony West with our guest, Dr. Robert Schoch. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It's going to be a great night tonight. At the bottom of the hour, Chance Gardner is going to be here live from Australia. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Dr. Schoch. Or do we have Dr. Schoch's links up? We'll get that up on Twitter in just a bit. It's Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy.
You're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell,
You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly Ancient Life Oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best, purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dr. Robert Schoch. And our tribute to the one and only John Anthony West, who left this planet last week. And I'm sure he's up there right now just going, you guys better bring it big. Don't be playing around and don't go soft. So we're not going to do that tonight, Dr. Schoch. Let's do this. Ibiza. Ibiza. Now,
God, yeah,
right.
He loved it there. He often spoke about that. Before we get to that, I was just thinking about something else, if I could mention it.
Sure.
Yeah, we were colleagues in arms. We were fighting the establishment. I mean, I guess we're still carrying that on. And in the big, I can't talk. All the commotion, all the stuff about the Sphinx, and the Egyptologists were attacking us, and he relished things like, for instance, he told one Egyptologist that her opinion of the geology of the Sphinx was no better than that of a proctologist, and that didn't exactly help smooth out the situation. Then she went after me because she happened to be at Boston University and tried to get me fired, but I was tenured, fortunately, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, it was rough for me, and being in academia, I had to live with these people, and I didn't want all this hubbub, I'll put it that way. I didn't want to be attacked all the time. I didn't want to go to Christmas parties, and they call it holiday parties, I guess, at the university, and have people come up and spit in my face virtually. I mean, virtually, literally. And I talked to West about this and say, look at all this trouble you're causing me, and you've ruined my life. And he would just laugh. And he relished it all. I mean, he thought it was great. Now, he was not in academia, so he was looking at it from a bit of a different perspective. But,
right.
I made him laugh quite a bit when he would.
Well, let me ask you this. We have to talk about Ibiza because his stories about Ibiza.
He adored Ibiza. He of course lived there. That's where he wrote Osborne's Army, his novel.
Right.
Excellent novel.
Well, we'll get to Ibiza in a second. I want to jump back. You just reminded me of something. You guys met. At that time you weren't tenured yet, and you wanted to wait till that happened before you guys went full bore.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I wasn't stupid. And he respected that. He was frustrated, but respected that.
But did you? But that's not my question, Robert. This is my question. You were the young kid at that time. And he was, older than. Did you ever grow out of being the kid in his eyes?
Yes and no.
Right.
He always from day one respected me, that I had credentials, that I had, even when we first met, I'll be crude, a long CV and publications and that type of thing. But I was always, of course, a generation younger.
Right.
And that didn't bother me. And I always felt I was learning from him. I always felt that he learned from me too. I mean, he admitted that. I taught him a lot of geology and other things.
Right.
And he realized, and this was something that was wonderful too, when I would point out mistakes he made, say in the realm of geology at the beginning, because he had some theories about how the Sphinx was eroded and that type of thing based on his limited knowledge of geology, and I pointed out mistakes he made, which weren't fatal at all. In fact, the proper geological interpretation reinforced the antiquity of the Sphinx. So there was always that give and take, back and forth, but I never wanted to, sort of usurp his position as the senior person, should we say?
Yeah, and it's kind of
hard. If that
hard.
makes sense. I mean, but he never disrespected me. He always, it was an interesting relationship in that sense from my perspective. I mean, we were very, very close friends, but yes, he was the senior person. I mean, in age and experience.
Yeah, it's hard to break out of that. That part of it, because you're younger, he's older, and you're never going to be the same age, right?
That's right. But it was never a problem. That's what I want to stress. Not only was it never a problem, I think it actually reinforced our bond in friendship.
Now,
if that makes sense.
It does. Now, Ibiza. Now, this is the thing. I look at Jaws, and when I hear John speak about of his time in Ibiza, Ibiza is a bacchanal, free form, free spirit, leave your clothes at the door. It's a place where you can do whatever you want, whatever your desires are. You can do that there, and it allows you to hopefully find your bliss, find your inner soul, and you can expand the direction that you want to go into. The perfect place for a guy like Jaws. He found himself there through that freedom, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, and he found a couple of things. He was a writer before he got there. He often liked to talk about how he actually became a writer when he had his first short story published, and this was the late 1950s. And it was sort of the equivalent of for me, we talked about this back and forth. It was sort of the equivalent of when I got my PhD, when he first had his genuine publication. He was now a published writer. He went to Ibiza. He was part of, and I hate to use this term, but I use it in a complimentary sense. He was part of the Beat generation when it comes right down to it.
Right.
But that was a very intellectual generation. Yes, there was everything you said, but they were also serious about things. And he was serious about his writing. He was serious about his art. And it was there that he first became involved in Schwaller de Lubitsch, in the symbolist school of Egypt, as it's often referred to. It was there that he got to know his friend, the Dutch writer.
I forget his name.
They wrote the Case for Astrology together, which came out, I want to say off the top of my head, the first edition was about 1970 or so. That was totally revised by West 20 years later and came out in the edition that most people would know now, just under his own name, not co-authored The Case for Astrology, which is an interesting book, and it gets back to Ibiza, because people sometimes think about, or they've heard of it, and they think this is some kind of woo-woo New Age book on astrology and all that. No, it's actually a very, very, very different type of book. It's really more about, and I'm thinking now, reverting to being an academic, it's really more about philosophy of science. And what is evidence, what is not evidence. And yes, he uses astrology as a case where you have real evidence for at least some aspects of astrology.
Now,
and he makes that argument, but he covers so much more in the book.
And knowing John as we do now, can you imagine, I want you to answer this honestly, could you imagine hanging out with John for a couple of nights in Ibiza back then and doing it correctly? Couple of bars that don't open up till midnight.
I would have loved to have been able to do that, I would have loved, because of course I didn't know him back then. And in fact, I was just a little kid when he's there. But yeah, it must have been unbelievable, because they would have these parties, as he relayed to me. I think his house where he lived was known as Rum Place.
Right.
And they would party hard, but they would think hard too.
They would.
I mean, so there was this combination of seriousness and totally, dereliction, if I could use that term.
Right.
And actually talking to him, and now that you make me think about it, it reminds me of what I saw at Yale as a graduate student, where I was with a bunch of graduate students, and except for me, of course, we were doing the same thing, where we would work hard, really work hard intellectually, but we'd also let loose. And that pressure valve going off. So it was a very, he bemoaned when, you had the, quote, hippie types coming in. And I don't want to put words in his mouth so much, but, the hippie types coming in and, they're just doing nothing. They don't have that serious aspect. It's okay to party hard, but you also have to have that serious aspect. You don't just party. You also accomplish things.
When the doo-doo started to hit the fan, when the TV show was released, The Mystery of the Sphinx.
Oh yeah, 1993.
1993.
It all hit the fan.
It all hit the fan. You had the geology conference that was in San Diego.
Oh God, that Steve. Here's a good example. He was in, to use the old-fashioned cliche, he was in hog heaven.
Right.
With all that. I was in the most serious depression. I was the one that was being attacked. Well, he was being attacked too, but I was the front person for being attacked, because who are the academics going to go after? They don't care that much about West. He's just a sideshow. I'm the one that, they're trying to get rid of.
Now, the Fadernauts...
And he loved it. He relished that whole thing, and he relished my position, too. He would joke to me about it, and I didn't think it was any joking matter. Okay. I mean, I can laugh about it now, but I wasn't laughing back then.
Okay, we've just got a petition started. Just to let you know, the Fadernauts have started a petition at highpetitions.com for John Anthony West to get a PhD.
Oh, posthumous PhD. Would be great. That would be great.
We've got it right here. We're going to start the distribution on this. I'll send it over to you, and this is really cool. So we're going to get this out there right now. See, this audience is the best, right?
Yeah.
That didn't take long.
No, that didn't take long at all. I was going to say, I do talk about some of this if people want to read more about it in my various books, especially Forgotten Civilization. And have some pictures there, too. And plus, I think you've got a link to my website. I put something much more serious, but I put something in honor of West on my website. I'll be putting more on in the future.
Yeah, we've got those links up, and we'll get it going throughout the night here. But the piece was from the heart, and the images, too, as well. were just really stir the soul, and it's really that's very personal. And thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, it's that means a lot to me. Like I said, I know you want to keep this on the lighter side, but we were close. We were close, and I would be lying if I didn't say that. I've really it's been hitting me hard. But it's cathartic to talk about it.
It is, but okay. So let's go back. I want your comment there. I thought was absolutely hilarious. 93 stress case, right?
Oh, it was bad for me.
And John,
it was wonderful for him.
John, I can only imagine his happiness. Did he have to talk you off of the cliff?
Oh yeah, he actually did. I mean, I was so stressed out over it. When you say talk off the cliff, I'll be blunt. I mean, I wasn't going to commit suicide over it. But on the other hand, I threatened to walk away from all of it. We had it out in that sense. When we say we had out, it was never nasty or vicious. It was friends, hashing it out.
Right.
And I at one point, I just wanted to walk away from all of it. I didn't want anything to do with all this stuff. And he said to me something to the effect, I can't, this is a paraphrase, but basically he said, Schoch, look, you know what the evidence is. You know this is right. Are you just going to let them win and turn your back on all of this? Something to that effect. Because the evidence is good. And I got a kick out of, I did hear the beginning, you were mentioning Galileo. And Galileo, was it today that he was
the day he had to sit down. Yeah, he had to sit down.
Yeah, and that's what they wanted to do to me. And again, I'm not trying to compare myself to someone like Galileo, but it's sort of ironic, isn't it? We're having this conversation now. And, they really were going after me, and I wasn't liking it, and I wanted to recant, to use the Galileo analogy, or at least just walk away from it and go quietly off into my own field. And they would have been happy with that. Okay, we won't hear from Schoch again. Let him go back to his specialty of Eocene mammal fossils and publish papers once again that are absolutely excellent papers from an academic point of view and have a readership of 6 people, 6 other specialists in the field, that type of thing. And Wes said to me, are you really going to do that? Are you really going to walk away from all this? You know the truth to this. You know, even if the implications are disturbing to your academic colleagues. And he convinced me that no, and I knew he was right. He convinced me that I had to live up to what I had always advocated, which is that you go with the evidence, you look at the evidence, you go with the truth, if I could use that term, and you don't back away from it, whether it's popular or not. And
somebody just posted a picture of you, Hawass, West, and it's Hawass, and Graham Hancock. And the four of you are standing there together. And I'm looking at...
You have to send that to me or something. Well, I don't see that now, yeah.
In this picture, it almost looks like everybody is getting along except for Baval and Jaws. Those two don't look happy. Graham is laughing. Hawass has got a smile on his face. Did they ever... Did Hawass ever capitulate? Did he ever give in? I mean, even a little bit?
Yeah, I would say a little bit. I felt that my relationship and Wes's relationship with Hawass was sort of on and off, more or less. What I mean by that is that we would disagree, certainly publicly we would disagree, but I've had private conversations and dinners with Hawass in the past. I haven't seen him recently, honestly, but actually, I guess I have seen him relatively recently, but not in any kind of intimate, personal setting.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he would back off per se, but there wasn't a personal animosity necessarily between Hawass, West, and myself that there was, for instance, and maybe still is, between, to use the other extreme, Robert Bauval, who of course I know very well too,
mm-hmm.
and Zai Hawass. If I'm making sense, if you follow what I'm saying.
You are.
I've never felt a real personal animosity between Hawass and myself, and I believe that was always the case with West and Hawass. In fact, I observed that when we were together, that, we might disagree. I'm now talking about West, Hawass, and myself. We might all disagree on things, but there was also an amicable relationship at a certain level and a respect at a certain level. I have actually witnessed Hawass saying very positive things about and to John Anthony West in the past. That doesn't mean he agreed with him on the dating of the Sphinx or other interpretations, but he acknowledged that John West did a lot to help Egypt, bring Egypt into a popular spotlight, to gain good attention for Egypt, which Egypt needs, help tourism, that type of thing. And Hawass respected that, I believe.
Did you guys have any idea? You and I talked privately last week on the phone, and we had a really good laugh about this. Very few people have a chance to change the world. It's a whole nother step to actually follow up on that and do it and change the world. The two of you did this together, arm in arm, lockstep. You fought the good fight, and you did do that. But did you have any idea that you were going to tip the world on its axis like you guys did?
No, I don't think so. I did not, at least initially. I went into this quite naively. Now, I will say for John Anthony West, I think he did realize how important this was and how, I'll use your term, game-changing this was.
Right.
Because it raises so many issues. An older Sphinx is not just an older Sphinx. Who cares if it's an older Sphinx? It raises the whole issue of civilization before civilization is supposed to have existed. It raises the whole issue, ultimately, of civilization and sophisticated culture before the end of the last ice age, what I call now an earlier cycle of civilization, which John West was very happy with that term, going back to a much more remote period. It changes the whole nature of what we think of as progress, which is something he was very interested in. For people that know his work, he liked to talk about the Church of Progress, the concept of the Church of Progress, which is as dogmatic as any conventional church, more or less modern science, thinking that we're the best and the brightest, and if you go back in time, they can only be stupider and dumber than us, and it's from dumb old them to bright and technologically sophisticated us. And he'd like to point out, well, what did our technology bring us? Striped toothpaste and atomic bombs.
And towards the latter part of his career, he started to, and we've only got a few minutes left, but I think we need to touch upon this. He started to really address the spirituality and the religious side, the hardcore spirituality side of ancient Egypt, and also,
yes, actually. But the funny thing is, you say toward the latter part of his career, it was there all along.
Right.
I mean, for 30 or so years, I knew him. It was there. It just didn't make the front lines. It didn't. People weren't aware of that, and I think in part because he hadn't spoken about it as much, and he hadn't publicized that aspect as much, especially when we were embroiled with the Sphinx controversy, that type of thing.
Right.
But no, it was there. But you're absolutely right. It came forward even more. And so, for instance, the little thing I wrote so far and posted on my website. If people read that, I talk about at least some of that aspect based on the ancient Egyptians. And, of course, he was probably the greatest translator, if I could use that term, of dynastic Egyptian beliefs along those lines into modern terms.
Yeah, he had mentioned one of our last shows. We've done 5 shows with Jaws. Okay, today being the 6th, he's technically here. Okay,
oh, he's absolutely here.
He's absolutely here. And our first show with John Anthony West. Are you ready? It was our seventh broadcast on January 6th, 2014. Incredible.
Wow.
And there you go. But one of our last conversations, one of the last times he was on the show last year, right before he fell ill, he spent some time with me on the phone for, it was about a week's worth of conversations about near-death experiences. And you know about that, and he edited the book for his friend, and he was working on that.
The Dead Saints Chronicles.
The Dead Saints Chronicles. And so I was trying to talk to him about Egypt. There were some things that we had on the table, and he was okay with that. But he kept stopping and steering the conversation. These were private conversations. Back to, he's like, Jimmy, we can do a show about that. But I really want to talk about the near-death experience. There's something going on here. And his interest was just right there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I'll tell you, he had that interest, at least privately, as long as I knew him. And when you look at some of his early, even fictional work, if you know him and sort of in hindsight, and they say hindsight's 20/20, but at least when I read it, you can see some of these interests already had developed, even back in the early mid-'60s in his writing.
I want to thank you for taking the time to come on tonight. And
my pleasure, my pleasure. Anytime for as I said, my really dear friend.
Yeah, you know what? And your dear friend is going, Robert, you held back. This was your one shot. This was your one shot.
You'll get me to come out eventually. You've done that before. But it takes time.
Thank you so much, Robert. Give my best to Katie, and just
absolutely
enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will speak very, very soon, my friend. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Robert Schoch, and it's drrobertschoch.com. You have to go read his latest article that he posted up there about John Anthony West. It is absolutely amazing. Only one person could write it, and that's Robert Schoch. This is Fade to Black. I'll be right back with Chance Gardner, live from Australia. This is our John Anthony West tribute special. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires. This year we've experienced more than our fair share. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and last month I decided to make sure my family does not have to worry about food should we get caught in a real emergency situation. Introducing Numana, a healthy, storable product that tastes so good that you'll want to eat it every day instead of just during those times of duress. All Numana products have a 25-year shelf life, are MSG and GMO-free, no preservatives, and are made in America. With the Numana pack in your home, you'll be able to sleep at night knowing that you've protected your family. Not only have I tasted and tested, I own it. Now you can too. Just click on the Numana banner on JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code Jimmy when you order. In addition to a discount, we'll send you an autographed Fade to Black t-shirt. Seriously. Go Beckley Tappy.
Do you worry a lot? Whether you're a college student, busy professional, parent, or grandparent, ongoing stress and elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol can rob your memory, your health, and your future. Now you can combat the effects of stress and anxiety while improving your memory and recall at the same time with the dietary supplement Calm and Clever. Studies show that the ingredients in Calm and Clever reduce cortisol by as much as 30% in 1 to 2 weeks. Call 1-800-758-8746 or calmandclever.com.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. You know, there's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. This is our John Anthony West special tribute. I want to thank Dr. Robert Schoch for coming in and sharing some pretty funny stories. The best. Next up, we have Chance Gardner, live from Australia, director of Magical Egypt 1 and 2. And before I go into a big, long, look, I'm all choked up. A big, long introduction. I just want to welcome back to Fade to Black, Chance Gardner, live from Australia. Chance, good evening. Good morning.
Good morning and good evening, Jimmy Church. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and I wish it was different circumstances, but this is...
I wish it was under better circumstances.
Yeah, and, you know, this is the deal. John, would be so angry at us if we went melancholy. Right, it ain't about that, and we were just laughing about that with Robin. I'm sure you're listening to the show, but the truth is he would use some very colorful language if we went in the wrong direction. So we're not going to do that tonight, are we?
No. One of the things that John was famous for is when he took a mind to it, he could just eviscerate you. You did not want him mad at you. With his verbal skills and his brain, I've seen him take many a man apart, Jimmy.
Yes. You know what? One day, I'll start off with this story. I'll keep it brief, but Rita and I were in Manhattan, and we went through the Egyptian wing at the Met, which, you know, it's one of the great Egyptian, things to do outside of Egypt. And so we did that. So I called John, and Rita and I are walking through Central Park. And I've got Jaws on the phone. And I was going back and forth between Robert and Jaws. And I'm talking to Jaws about the exhibit and different things out there. And I wanted him to come on the show, and we're going to talk about things. Well, anyway, his mind is so... Oh, I got some bad wind. Okay. You I'm just going to let everybody know that Chance lives on the ocean. He's got these massive doors open in the breeze. I'm picturing the curtains blowing and the sun coming in. You've got a Mai Tai. So
how's that, Jimmy? Everything's closed up unless I'm expelling air out of some new hole in my head.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, that was John. And so I'm talking to him about the exhibit and different things that I saw. His mind is so sharp, he knew every single object in the Egyptian wing at the Met intimately. Wow. And he corrected me, laughing, correcting me every step of the way. And I took it like a man. I mean, it was just like he knows his stuff. He knows his dates. He knows his objects. He knows everything about that. And I was completely humbled by it. And then he goes, and Jimmy, we can talk about all of this on the show. It was like, what can you do, right? What can you do? But that's him. His mind was as sharp as anything, and especially when it came to Egypt. Did he ever correct you?
It's funny. I was just going to say that. I have a relationship with him that was very much like he was like a stern martial arts instructor, and he constantly had a ruler out slapping me in the forehead. I was, like a young idiot television executive, and I'd done pretty well, and I was pretty full of myself when I was a young kid and I first met him. And really quickly when I fell into his company, it was clear that he didn't quite think of me the same way that I thought of myself. And he'd correct my thinking, which I just, most people aren't accustomed to being corrected all the time. And it took quite a bit of I had to find this place of humility that I didn't know that I had, just like with any instructor or any mentor. And he was very quick to slap me down. And there's so many automatic things we do and so many ridiculous parts of speech and so much subliminal programming that we have by the time we get out of school, and you don't really realize that all those thoughts in your head aren't yours. And, as an artist, I've never been a scientist, and as an artist, I think it's important for everyone to develop skills in language that are precise and accurate. But if you're going to be discussing issues like this that are such triggers and such hot buttons for people, and you need to be very precise about the way you speak. And although it wasn't pleasant at the time, it's one of the million things I have to thank John for, is he, it was a trial by fire, and he never was merciful towards me if I spoke in sloppy language, if I took something for granted, or, listen to people who I shouldn't have been listening to, repeating people I shouldn't have been. He was all about free speech and everything, but when it came time to present these certain ideas, he was definitely a crucible that I had to go through, and it took quite a bit of humility to do so. And I'm so much better for the experience.
And the other side, which I just adored about John, was his sense of humor. The dude was funny. What made you laugh when it came to John?
His dark sense of humor and his ability to pick apart people that were really self-important. He didn't care for a lot of the new atheists. He and I had some differing opinions on people. Like, I really enjoy Christopher Hitchens and people who have such a clarity of intellect and such an ability to speak. But whenever I bring up, Christopher Hitchens or Sam Harris, and especially Richard Dawkins, John would go off. It was like watching a cat when a dog walked into a room. There's certain people he had these philosophical differences with, and he was not only just able to eviscerate, but he was able to do it in such a funny way. And from your time with him, especially when he was around Gerald Celente, the two of those guys were these little co-conspirators, and just this factory for hilarious, change one letter in a word and make it hilarious. Like, the press became the prostitutes and academics became quackademics, and he just was never at a loss for a one-word derogatory term for someone he didn't approve of.
Now, one of my favorite things to do with him, and it was so easy, is all I had to do was bring up Richard Dawkins. That's all I had in any context. And then I would just shut up. The name only had to be mentioned. And it was one of my funnest things to do with him. And did you do that with him too as well? Now, you just brought up Gerald, and I don't want to let that go too as well. But what was it about those black and white atheist, what's the word I want to use? Non-spiritual, people
materialist.
out there. Materialists that just got under his skin.
Well, the thing that really John's contribution to humanity was to show that ancient Egypt wasn't trying to tell us a bunch of stories about animal-headed gods, that through the use of this visual language, they were transmitting these schematics of psyche, and these schematics of our kind of psycho-spiritual anatomy, if you will. And the most important thing you can do, you have a small period of time in this physical incarnation to get to know and to get to wield your higher aspects, your mind and, whatever the psycho-spiritual wings of architecture are that are, the higher aspects. There's a lot to the human experience that isn't physical. And so he was never against science, and he really brought the scientific method to this genre, which is a lot more than I could say for, most of the people occupying this genre. And the fact that he brought Robert Schoch in, I think, is really what put John West on the map, because John knew that people like him and people like me, you only get so far, no matter how persuasive or how well-spoken you are, before scientists are going to say, well, you're not a scientist, so why would we care what you think? So early on, he brought Robert Schoch in to anchor this thing in science. But the thing about science, as we all know, is that it's the mandate of science to focus on what is measurable and what is repeatable. And there are things in the nous and in the psyche. The biggest mystery of all to science is nobody knows what consciousness is. Nobody knows what the hell consciousness is. And it's the biggest, most central thing. It's like talking to a fish about water, and they say, what water? I don't know what you're talking about, water.
Right.
And so when people tried to say there was nothing but the physical, and that all of your thoughts and all your emotions are a product of chemicals and electrical impulses in the brain, he did not care for that. And, what I found really interesting in him, too, is even when the tide was almost a feeding frenzy about ancient aliens and stuff like that, he got furious when you brought up the idea of aliens, because it was still a physical, materialist explanation that just sort of offset the source of this information to some other planet, and really didn't still acknowledge that special, most mysterious, invisible thing that, this invisible temple that we should all be building, that the Egyptians left, rather specific instructions about how to build. So that was the thing that bothered him. 'Cause, the whole thing started out with this maxim that most people get wrong when they repeat it, but early on, some famous scientist said, we only understand about, I forget it was 2 or 10%. We only understand about 10% of what the brain does. Maybe it was 2%. And he didn't say we only use 2% of our brains, which is the common thing that everyone says. But he said we really only understand about 2% of what the brain does. And that was fair enough, that all science can address are these things that we can actually measure and duplicate and repeat. But at some point, science changed to an even more radical materialism that said, if we can't measure it, it doesn't exist, which is, ridiculous. Try and take a meter out and measure humor, or measure the swell of a sonata, or measure the what makes your eyes dilate when you see a beautiful woman, or you hear a fantastic Gretsch playing an old Duane Eddy song. There's a lot to life. I might argue, John would certainly argue, that the best parts of life happen when you're not dwelling on the material. And so that was the nature of his complaint with them, is that science moved out of their jurisdiction to say, not first, honestly, we don't know what it does, and then to say, well, there's nothing except what we know. And that's what bothered him about Richard Dawkins. And also, he was just such a sword fighter. He was such a swashbuckler. And the way I would imagine any mixed martial artist, when they see another martial artist that's big and intimidating, they're going to kind of work on their game a little bit and do an extra little bit of workout when they know that they're going to be in the ring with these people. So I think in the back of his mind, he was always sort of subconsciously preparing for that inevitable day when he squared off with a Dawkins or a Hitchens or a Sam Harris. And unfortunately, that never came.
I was going to just ask you that. Did he ever go face to face with Dawkins?
He never did. Never was in the room. Never talked to Hitchens, or he didn't care for Daniel Dennett either. He was part of that. Those four. I was one time we were in the Mina house, just eating lunch, and I think there were some cocktails involved. And I look up and I see Mark Lehner sauntering.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so in this way, I'm not usually such a subtle person, and I'm normally not a stirrer like this, but because he was walking kind of by us, and he didn't see John, and John didn't see him, but I kind of leaned back and acted like I dropped something, and I blocked Lehner's passage for a minute so that Lehner would stop. And then they both look up at the same time, and they both see each other. And they had this exchange. It started out polite, and Lehner said, hi, and John said, Lehner, what are you doing here? And Lehner instantly said, oh, I'm just trying so desperately to prove that the Sphinx is only 3,000 years old. It was some catty response that Lehner had to something John had said earlier. And just without a beat, John said, well, try as you won't, try as you will, you never will prove that. And this just instant exchange that was so quick, but it was so rapier, and both men walked their separate ways, and I just inside, I was applauding like a little boy because I got to see it.
Well played, man. Well played. Well done. I wanted to ask you about that, actually. When you were privately, dinner, drinks with John, what did you guys talk about?
You know, the thing that we talked about more than anything, and I don't know how many people know this about John. John was a child of the theater. John loved the theater. His first wife, I believe his second wife, were theater people. And he was a playwright, first and foremost. And the only times that, we always got along really well in that kind of father-son way / martial arts instructor way, where he was punishing me a lot, but we were really, really good friends. And when I was at the networks, and I, occupied a place where, in his mind, he kept showing me these plays, and he wanted me to take them to the network and see if I could get some real attention for them. But they were Broadway plays and beautiful plays. So the thing that amazed me about him was, in addition to this remarkable contribution he made to the scientific world and kind of the metaphysical occult world, his plays and short stories were so funny and so interesting, but he wasn't bound to a certain topic or a certain subject, and he didn't have to be so careful about how he spoke. And so he could get wild and pornographic and just hilarious and mean-spirited, but the guy could really speak in allegories. I think what happens to anybody if you spend enough time in symbolism, or if you have a natural aptitude towards symbolism, it means that you have a pretty functional right hemisphere, and that your building blocks or your playthings are metaphors and allegory. And so in John's plays, every single one of them was a critique on modern society, and they were just as vicious and just as hilarious as the things that he would say offhandedly. But one of these days, I suspect, like Philip K. Dick, people are going to take a hard look at the plays that he's written and the short stories, because they're all so good, and every one of them is ripe for adaptation to a film or a play or some kind of a television treatment. And I always regretted not being able to do that for him. That as we all are just struggling to keep our heads above water, I was never in a position to do anything to help him out in that regard, and I really regret that, because I feel like that would have made him very happy.
What do you, when you first started your first trips over to Egypt, and you started this relationship and developing the series Magical Egypt 1, when you were going through that initial stage, what impressed you most? I have my things too as well that I can't get rid of when I think about that. What was it where you just stepped back and went, whoa?
Well, keep in mind, at the time, I was working on the Fox lot, and my job was to shoot promos. So every star of every TV show would come down, and I would shoot them on green screen. And watch next Tuesday, and Fox Mulder finds an alien live on Fox. Must see. And so every celebrity I've ever met has been a psycho, a self-entitled. There's a special kind of insanity and a special kind of monster you become when you're surrounded by yes men, and you internalize your fame and whatnot. And so I learned. And I had some rock and roll friends in Los Angeles, as you do, not the caliber that you do. But anyway, when you're around famous people, there's this dynamic where you really have to watch yourself and watch what you say. And when I met John, I could not believe how absolutely casual, unaware of his fame, unassuming, a very kind man. He had time to talk to anybody. And the reason that his trips were such a treat was that any man or woman from any walk of life could show up and hang out with John for 3 weeks, and he was just never treated any one person different than another, and never got that psychosis where he thought he was some really important thing and that he should be treated specially. So he was very easy to be around, and he had this wonderful baritone voice that was just like this big overstuffed leather chair. And so you just hang out with him, and good God, the amount of alcohol that we would pass through us. It's Egypt. There's nothing to do, when the temples aren't open.
Right.
And so just the stories and the fun and the camaraderie, and as you said, the sense of humor, but his generousness and the absolute surrealism of being around somebody who I still can't get a grip on how famous he was, because he was such an important thing in my life. And the people that know him, he's a huge thing, but then there's so many people that have never heard of him. So, but it was his humility. It was a very rare thing for somebody of his caliber.
Yeah, I told the story last week, but it bears repeating. It was just so funny. The second time he was on with us, we were doing a remote broadcast, right? And so anyway, Linda Moulton Howe and John were coming down to be on the show. They didn't realize that we had just wrapped. We had just done 3 hours live. But now here comes John and Linda. And John comes up and he goes, "Okay, let's go." And I was like, "Well, we just wrapped. So what? Start this show up again, brah. Let's keep going." I said, "Really?" So we sat down, and what I thought, and I think I told him we could do 5 minutes. We did an hour. Wow. And we sat there, the two of us. Those pictures, let me see if those are up. Rita was, okay, here's one. I'm going to retweet this to everybody. This is one. And there's another one. Rita, post the one with Linda, with the two of them. So this is John and I. I think this picture was actually after the broadcast. Now, you can look at this later, Chance. Look at me. I'm toasted, sunburnt, tired, running the ground. Look at John, standing up straight, eyes wide open. It's midnight. What's up, little man? You're too tired to hang with me, kind of thing. And it was just really, really funny. Normally, that's exactly what you're talking about. The whole star thing, right? Yeah. The whole ego, narcissistic, kind of thing. That was not in his life. Anybody else would have come down and said, oh, you guys are wrapped? Okay, done, and walked away. That's not what Jaws did that night. He said, "Let's go." And then, this is the truth beyond words. He hung out with the fans that were there for another hour, taking pictures and hanging out and telling stories. And just took it as far as the fans wanted to take it. No ego. And that's the truth. Okay, here we go. Rita just posted this. I'm going to retweet this. This picture here, and again, I want everybody to look. This picture is very, very telling. Look at me. I am toast. You can look at my face. I've had the longest day, 3 hours on the air. And the prep before that, Linda, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, John sitting up straight going, "Bring it." Right? And it's really the truth. And that is what kind of guy he was. And there's a shot glass that's tipped over on the table, too, if you look really close. But, and that's who he was. And I will never, there's so many things I can say right now, but there was one thing about John. He never once made me feel uncomfortable, or those around him. I'm not making this personal. Those around him, he never, ever did that. He was just always open to hearing everybody else's opinions, thoughts, and never cut anybody off. Now, when he was speaking, and that was the other thing, I want to know if he did this with you. If I didn't interrupt him, he could bust off 60 straight minutes.
That's funny you say that. I've talked to him. There's some years where I talk to him every day, and I'd get on the phone with him, And we'd be talking, and he was in New York, and I was in California, and this is in the days of cell phones, when cell phones would break out. I'm sure they still do, but so we'd be talking on the phone, and he'd launch into a story, and the phone would give out, and I'd call him back, and his phone would be busy. So I called him back again. His phone was still busy. And so I waited like 2 minutes, and his phone was still busy. And I waited like 15 minutes, and I called him back again, and his phone was still busy. 25 minutes later, I called him back, and his phone was still busy. Like 37 minutes later, I call him back, and he answers the phone, and he's like, How long have you been off the phone? Did you get all that? And he kept going with his story in this uninterrupted freight train for 37 minutes, not realizing that the phone had cut out. And that happened so many times.
Oh, man, that is spot on. Spot on the money. I never did. Oh, man, I want to say something that I'm just going to hold back on. But he would do just that. And I would just stay focused. And when we would have these conversations getting into symbolism and very specific things that was way beyond my scope of research and understanding. And I just sat there and paid attention, and I learned so much. And he would not stop. He had so much to say. Yeah. And just incredible shows. I just shared this with Robert, but I'm just going to repeat it now because it goes with what you're saying now. The first time he was on with us, and I told him it was going to be 2 hours, he said, that's not long enough. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, how long's the show? I said, 3 hours. He goes, okay, man, well, I need the whole 3.
Wow.
And that's, I learned my lesson, of course. It was absolutely right. He needs at least 3 hours, but he's got too much to say. I don't know anything. He knows everything.
I used to joke with him because, we had this strange relationship where as an interviewer, and especially like when I got into this, certain things I'm extremely interested in. So I'm constantly like going down that wing with him. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. And I would ask him things, and the reason I would ask him things is because I know that he has a good riff, and after spending so much time in Egypt with him and just, at home, and he spent a lot of time at my place in L.A., in Los Feliz, I knew these riffs. And so as a producer, as an interviewer, you want to put the shortest distance between you and a good riff of John's as possible. So I would ask these things that I knew that he had good riffs about. And frequently he'd go, oh, I don't know anything about that. And I'm like, no, I know you do because you just said something yesterday. I wouldn't have asked you if I didn't think you know about it. Let's talk about this. And I would end up telling him, and I do still believe this, that he had something like the Smithsonian Institution in his head. Like when you go to the Smithsonian, don't plan on looking at it in a day. You got to take a week and walk around in it. And he had this warehouse of information in his head. And I was like this little kid, I loved roaming around in that warehouse of knowledge in his head. And towards the end, I was kind of thinking, I know more about what's in your head than you do because I have to remind you. I'm not, it's just that he knew so much and he had so much going on. I'd still be interested in some simple little thing he said, 5 or 6 years ago, and he's on to new and better things. And so it was interesting to me because I used to tell him that all the time, that he had the Smithsonian Institution in his head, and I've become kind of a librarian with a coding system where I know where he keeps all the weird files. And one of the things that made our synergy work is I'm very interested in esotericism and Western esotericism and stuff. And he's aware of it and he can speak to it. And really, I would have to say he's one of the most informed people about occult and metaphysical things and the esoteric nature. And yet he's so interested in just all this practical science and geology and stuff. So I really kind of shined a light on these esoteric issues and kind of psycho-spiritual issues that weren't his normal foray, but that he really flourished when he talked about these things. And I think that was part of the thing that gave Magical Egypt its legs, because we're talking to a community that's often overlooked, and it's a massive and very, a large percentage of creativity and original thinking in the world over history, and a large percentage of the best art is done by this particular crowd. And nobody ever pays attention to them directly because there's other crowds that get mad, when you bring up certain subjects. And so he just so effortlessly could move from circle to circle to circle. But the vast variety and array of things that he could speak to was just another one of those things that made him a superpower.
Let's take a break right here. This is our John Anthony West tribute special. Our guest right now is Chance Gardner from Australia, director of Magical Egypt 1 and 2 with John Anthony West. And we're going to continue our tribute right after this short break. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station. Salt Lake City, Utah. Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
Hello, Fadernauts. This is Jimmy Church, and I'm introducing New Pharma, a company whose products are based on science. Human function based on the endocannabinoid system, or ECS. New Pharma firmly believes in this science, and their research indicates that support of the ECS provides the beneficial effects for a healthy lifestyle. New Pharma's science includes relief capsules for pain relief, sleep capsules, which are natural support for occasional sleeplessness. Foundation is support for your ECS, and Fit capsules support your active lifestyle. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2B for a 33% discount on all of their products. Or visit newpharma.com for all of the knowledge on the science. That's GNUpharma.com. Go Beckley Tappy. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. This is our John Anthony West special tribute. He passed away last week. And with us right now is Chance Gardner, live from Australia. He directed Magical Egypt 1 and 2 with John Anthony West. And I'm opening up the phone lines, 323-825-5045. And if you met John and you have a story you'd like to share with us, give us a call. And there you go. So I'm going to open up the phone lines right now. Now, Chance, the restoration of the Sphinx, do you think because of what Jaws and Robert did, well, and you pushing that along too with the series, do you think that in a strange way may be trying to cover up John's research?
Zahi, there were times when Zahi physically chased John over the plateau in his famous movie Mystery of the Sphinx, when he and Robert Schoch were doing seismographs. Sometimes in Egypt, if you want to get anything done, you just have to go do it. And if you start asking for permission, the hands come out and all of a sudden you're drowning in a sea of bribes and stuff. And so the best way to get things done is kind of the guerrilla method. And John was never afraid of that. And so frequently Zahi would just shut him down. And it took a long time for them to reach this kind of détente where they were sort of begrudging friends at the end. But there was I cannot put this into words yet. And by the end of this series, I hope to put it into words. There seems to be an institutional resistance to acknowledging some little thing. There's something about our past that has to do with ancient Egypt that we are forbidden to know about. I know it sounds like an insane conspiracy theory, but, in this day and age when Q is posting and, the intelligence community and that way of thinking is kind of very forefront in all of our minds these days. And you can kind of tell, my education was in media, as I'm sure yours was, and you can watch the news and tell by the way a story's structured, whether it's a press release or whether it's something that is supposed to manipulate society in some way. There are very few genuine stories in the news. They're always generated by someone with an agenda. And through this occlusion, this weird game of battleship, you can kind of assess someone's motives by the things that they're most excited about avoiding. And there's something about John and about Graham and about Robert Bauval, and I've certainly felt the boot, felt the heel of this, that there's something about our past that we're not allowed to know. And the Sphinx and the Giza Plateau is central in this, and maybe very well what's in the pyramid. I mean, I'd be so surprised if they didn't absolutely, completely already know what that extra room, what that new room was in the pyramid, and that we're just not allowed to know about it. And I don't, I'm not here to beat on anybody or, to point fingers, but there are people in the administrative setup of the Department of Antiquities. You would think their job is to constantly be trying to generate new information and new findings about this mysterious place. But in practice, if you watch them, every single act they take is to reduce the amount, suppress the information and restrict our ability to reconstruct this secret from the past. And so I wouldn't care to speculate on why that is, but the fact that it does happen, I think, is getting harder and harder to deny.
Let's grab a quick phone call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. You're live.
Hello?
Yes, you're live. Who's calling?
Hello. This is Arnold.
Hi, Arnold.
Hey. We had a great experience with John Anthony West in 2005 on the Giza Plateau and touring. And he was just amazing wealth of knowledge, the things that he showed us. There was this one area just south of the Sphinx, so I guess a little bit east of the pyramids, where there was a temple, and he pointed to a corner of it where it had been broken off, and you could see behind this what was modern or more pyramid age type temple, but underneath it was eroded an older temple, much, much older. And there was just so much knowledge and information he had, and it was just amazing that we got a chance to share that experience. Only one day on Giza with him was hardly enough to learn as much as what he had, but it was just so wonderful. And, we have pictures. I put a few up here to show, but It was great.
Yeah, I just
love the man.
Yeah, your pictures are absolutely incredible. Now, Arnold, he just posted these in Twitter, Chance. You need to check these out. They're really cool. But and thank you, Arnold, for that. Let me ask you a question.
Thanks, Arnold.
You said that he pointed at this temple. What did he say about the temple?
Well, he showed how apparently evident it was that this stuff, even though it was common, or say 3,500 years old or whatever, it was contemporary with the Pyramid Age, but underneath it was something much, much older, and it was greatly eroded. And it had made you wonder, what the heck really is going on here?
Right.
And when we were at the Great Pyramid, I have a picture, but it's kind of far away.
Oh, I think we...
The limestone... Go ahead.
We lost you, Arnold. Arnold, we lost what you said. You dropped out. You said you took a picture of the Great Pyramid and...
the limestone original casings on the lower of the Great Pyramid are greatly eroded. I mean, you could look at them and could tell that this was not just some light rainfall that's done this. These things are really, really old. And so that's just what I wanted to point out, to be able to look at that erosion on what is left of the original casing stones on the north side of the Great Pyramid. And you've got to wonder, how old is this?
Yeah, and Arnold, and thank you for your memory of John and the photographs. But before I let you go, what was the one thing? Because I know you have one memory of many, but what was the funniest thing that happened with John? I know we cracked a joke. He said something that was left with you. Share that with us.
Well, it was, I can't remember specifically, but the way he would talk about the academics and how they don't really know the geology, and looking at the inner area of the Sphinx where it's eroded so greatly, and that they really don't have an explanation for that. And so it's there's so many things, but I mean, I think that the quackademic term and the way he used that was one of the things that I'll just never forget.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Arnold. Thank you for sharing that with us on this very special night, my friend. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Take care.
Yeah, what a great memory right there, Chance. You know, he's doing a private tour on the Giza Plateau, and Quackademics was part of the package.
I know exactly where that place is that Arnold was talking about. It's in the Valley Temple right in front of it's next to the Sphinx. That's the place that looks like the Osirion, and it looks more like Stonehenge than any of the other Egyptian stuff. So it's vastly ancient, and yet he would show this in this very sort of nonchalant, matter-of-fact way, that there are parts of this place where the casing stones have fallen away, and shown that these casing stones were put over in a structure that already existed. And stones had that same weathering that, conservative people, you were just talking to Schoch, and Schoch has always taken a more conservative viewpoint. But when you look at these things, you look at them and they might be millions of years old. I mean, by the way these rocks are, and if you know much about the way rocks erode, this thing could be vastly. I always like John leaving the door open for this might be. He said one time, if the truth were ever known about this place, this would be so staggeringly old that no one would know what to say about it, and we'd all just stand around shaking our heads for a week.
Yeah, you're right about Robert, and I have to give Robert the credit where he stuck his neck out as far as he could, and he could have gone further, but he can't.
Yeah.
He's got eyes. He can look around. He knows what's really going on. He's taken it pretty far, and he's going to continue westward. But that being said, John said to me once, he said, look, man, the pyramids and Giza most likely was built on top of another sacred site. that was sacred to them, that is much, much older and goes way back. Because I've always asked them, what else is to be found? Are there tunnels? Are there things underneath there? The paw of the Sphinx, Edgar Cayce. We brought up the obvious stuff. He took it a step further, that the pyramids were built there, not to build the pyramids, but because it was already a sacred location, an older temple that we have no idea how old it is. And that's a very interesting aspect of it. And you're saying that you saw the exact same thing, that it's just obvious, but nobody wants to mention it.
It's there, and everybody looks at it. Everybody walks by it. And it's so obvious. It's just right there. And that's not just like this one thing. It's the point of John's tours was he'd take you to every place like that in Egypt and every single structure. The temples less so. The temples seem to be discreet and self-contained in this time, except for Abydos, which they seem to have been digging the foundation of Abydos when they found the Osirion. Because Abydos temple is the only temple that turns. I don't know if you ever noticed that, but none of the other temples take a hard right turn like that. And it looks like they were building Abydos, and they had to literally modify their plan midway through because part of the foundational process, they unearthed the Osirion, which was 32 or 33 feet below ground level. And that was his tour. That was what's so special about his tour. And another funny thing related to this was it's usually pretty vulgar when someone says, I told you so, and the first thing you learn in a relationship, never say I told you so. But John was so good at it. And he would get in these fights. He's really contentious because, a lot of academic people they're not renowned for their sense of humor, And sometimes they didn't understand that John was partially being theatrical when he'd barb and joust with them. But one of the things he said, there's some woman that was just really full of herself and was trying to beat John down. And John says to her, by the end of this, you will have eaten so much crow that they'll be an endangered species. And so forever after that, John and I would talk about, as a graphic designer, is my original core strength. I'd always wanted to actually print a book that was the Crow Cookbook so that John could send it to all the people that he's proven wrong.
Wait, this was on a tour?
Yeah.
This woman?
Oh, no. This was one of his many fights with academia that took place over email and stuff. He spent his whole life fighting with people. He used to call it goaltending. I'm goaltending the Sphinx theory. So he was constantly in bitter battles with academia.
When was the last time you spoke to John?
Oh, my God. Well, email, the whole time. And, I don't want to start crying on your show. Zeke put the phone up to his ear right like the day before, his last day basically Among Us. And that was, I don't want to start crying, Jim.
Okay. Well, was he aware? The reason why I'm asking is, and I'll get the lump out of your throat right now. The reason why I'm asking is, was he aware of the chamber that was just discovered?
Well, the funny thing is it's been just discovered over and over again. They knew about it in the 40s. It's always been there. That's the thing that infuriates me is all that stuff was there. I was there once when there was this dig, and there's this whole massive complex underground where tourists walk and, where you buy Kentucky Fried Chicken, the most vulgar fast food restaurants and stuff. If you just look the other way from that iconic view of the pyramid and the Sphinx, you're just standing in front of this place that's not very well kept up. And that whole place that tourists stand when they're taking their photographs of the Sphinx is something. And the chambers under the Sphinx, John kind of found them through seismograph. But, back in the 40s, they were talking about it. Edgar Cayce was all about it. And then that hole on top of the Sphinx's head that leads somewhere that nobody wants to acknowledge. And all the way back to Herodotus, Herodotus and Pythagoras, but Herodotus he spent his whole life, mapping out all the stuff that was there. So I hate to be a broken record, but none of this stuff has ever been secret. It's just that the media or, the authorities and the gatekeepers really go out of their way to keep us from having ready access to the unexplainable stuff.
Well, but was he aware of, the recent radar the pyramid scan project and
I never got a chance to talk to him about that. The Muon thing, that Japanese team.
Right.
He was all over Gantenbrink and Baval. I've become real good friends with Baval lately, and he was really good friends with Gantenbrink. But these new people, are just so out of left field, and I didn't know much about them at all, and I really didn't pay attention because I'm not very optimistic about some revelation coming out of ancient Egypt at this point. Mm-hmm. So I've never got a chance to talk to him about that. And I've frequently asked him, and there's a really cool, really mysterious guy named Mohammed that is the sledgehammer. He's kind of his new Boris Said. Mohammed is the man on the ground, and he runs Quest Travel, Mohammed Nazmi. So if you ever want to go to Egypt, try and find Mohammed Nazmi at Quest Travel. And Mohammed lives there, and he's actually he's one of those players. So he's friends with Zahi, and he's friends with everybody, and he has to be to, make sure the doors are open to you and stuff. And I think that there's no secrets. I think it's being kept from us, but I think that that stuff's known. Those little 10-year-old Egyptian boys, get into everything. And there's so many things that have been found by just little kids playing. And all of a sudden, here's this stone that's loose, and I pick it up, and there's a passageway underneath. There's this little room at the back of Dendera where the light bulb is that is literally, there's a loose stone on the floor, and you'd never know it was there except some little 10-year-old boy was goofing around. I don't know. Not like 10's a magic number. You know what I mean? Little kids playing around all the time. One time I was riding my bike through the Valley of the Kings, which is a bad idea in summertime. And I see some little kids playing off in the distance. And they're all playing and just doing kid stuff. And I'm riding by on my bike, and it's kind of quiet. And I hear them all get excited. And I look over, and they hold this thing up. It's like this giant, cool prize that they've just found. And it was a mummified human hand that these little, 7, 8, 9-year-olds found. And they start playing with it and throwing like a Frisbee and playing football with it. And that desert for, tens of thousands of years, people have been falling over in the desert. And because there's no moisture, it's a natural mummification process. Whether you're mummified or not, you're going to turn into jerky, beef jerky, human jerky.
Right.
And so there's just stuff all the time there, and it keeps getting found and reburied and refound and reburied. There's one giant trash, there's a trash bin, like literally a garbage dump in the oldest, most mysterious, and certainly the largest ruin in Egypt. And they declared that it was part of the military base, so no one could go there. And then they went even farther to fill it with trash. So you can watch YouTubes about it. And it's just there, and it's massive and like alien big, and they don't want to talk about it. So now it's all full of trash, and it's on an army base, so you can't ever look at it again.
Yeah, when you look, and I do this all the time, you go to Google Earth and poke around the Giza Plateau and expand and search. It's all military land, right? You go a little bit off of the Nile, you head west, everything is military and off limits. And it's sand.
Yeah, it's a bunch of sand. Yeah. A couple of bits of glass here and there. I have nothing but empathy for, if you're a kid and you're at loose ends and you're just knocking around Egypt, odds are you're going to end up in the army. And once you're in the army, I have a special sympathy for this because right now it's about 180 degrees in Australia, just crazy hot, but nothing like Egypt. And the one time that I went to Egypt in the summertime, you'd be walking through Cairo and literally you're wearing as few clothes as possible and you're drenched with sweat and you're drinking like you drink a 2-liter bottle of water and you never pee because it just comes out your pores. It's so hot and so miserable. So now imagine you're an 18-year-old dude. You're in the army. You have to wear this black wool. It wasn't cotton. It was a wool army suit with a hat. And you have to stand at attention on a street corner with your rifle and not do anything all day. You can't get in the shade. When you pull into the airport, there's a row of these kids that they're soldiers, but they're just kids, And it's miserable. It's miserable. And it's just so incredibly hot there, and I felt so sorry for those poor people. And it really makes you appreciate, fewer and fewer people are saying positive things about America these days, but there's nothing like a trip to the third world to make you appreciate the few remaining liberties we still have.
What do you think? I know you heard Robert's answer to this, but do you think that John was aware of his impact? I mean, because I think that all of us appreciate it, but was John aware of that?
we had hilarious conversations about this. I remember one time at UCLA, we had to sneak into UCLA and we weren't supposed to be there. So if you watch like Magical Egypt episode 2 of the original series, John's in a library and he's talking, but he's talking in really hushed tones and I'm really close to him and we just totally weren't supposed to be there. But on that day, I really distinctly remember we're walking through the campus. And we're both kind of seeing, is anybody going to recognize John? All the time, in Egypt, just random people you just see him freeze and turn ashen face, like, oh my God, there's John West.
Right.
And so we're walking through UCLA and we're having this talk, and he's trying to tell me, we're trying to figure out how famous he is, and we're trying to figure out this grid. Like, well, I'm not Sting famous. I'm not famous. I have just one name. And I kept saying, look, there's famous and there's important. There's historical figures, and there's a lot of really superficial people that are famous. But it was funny that it was something that he and I would talk about a lot. How famous are you? I guess the metric of that is the density of how many times you get recognized out in the real world, which happened to him a lot.
Yeah, Sting famous. That's pretty funny.
You can tell that was back in the 90s. We had that conversation.
And the opposition that he got from the Egyptologist in Cairo, did he let it affect him? Did he care?
He burned. He had. I mean, it's hard to explain. John was from the old school. He was from that era of education that doesn't exist anymore, where they taught you how to think instead of what to think.
Right.
And he had this gentlemanly masculinity about him that just simply does not exist anymore. That old world wonderfulness and bigness of spirit. And so he never got ugly and he never got mean, but man, he sure never backed down, and constantly ready to jump on somebody that tried to dispute or present facts that weren't the case.
But it's saying it in those terms. Would he do this? Did he have a face to face? Would he do this face to face, or was he reserved?
Yeah. He's like a pit bull. He was fearless. He'd go out of his way, and it would happen so quick. I keep using that sword fighter metaphor, or Sweeney Todd with the shaver.
Right.
He was so quick to eviscerate, and that I'm just I've always been sort of a pacifist, and whenever somebody gets really angry around me, I shut down. But he would rise to the occasion, and he'd get even quicker and sharper, and with just 2 or 3 words, he could take people apart, and was not like, he was such a gentle man, but when the time came to be confrontational, he did not. I mean, he rose to the challenge, and he was so good at it. And it was another one of those things that it's kind of why I say he was a substitute father figure for me, because I really learned the art of being confrontational while still retaining your dignity and your style.
Can I get you to hang on?
Sure.
We'll do a little overtime tonight. I'm not ready to wrap this conversation. We're right in the middle of it. But before,
I'll go all night.
Okay, I know you will. Okay, so let's do that. Before we head to the break, do you have any extra stuff from Magical Egypt 1 that will be released?
I have about 1,500 hours.
That's what I'm talking
John.
about. So are you going to release it?
Yeah. I have to. I don't know if you know this story, and I'll say this really quickly. When Venice and I came to Australia, it wasn't to live. We were just going to come over and have a vacation. And our first day on the ground, we got in a head-on collision on the freeway. Full speed head-on collision, and Venice broke her neck, and we thought she'd never walk again, and we lived in the hospital for years and years. And we had to just I never went home, never saw my house again, and I just liquidated all my belongings because I was in the hospital and I was never able to go home. But the one thing that I got was I'm ashamed to admit that I keep them in, but I've got thousands of little mini DV tapes in a giant garbage bag, like a garbage bag full of, like Santa's bag full of DVD tapes, and each one of them is 1 hour of John. Like, we stayed in San Francisco for a long time and shot hundreds of hours there in the botanical gardens and all over Balboa Park. So right now, as a result of us being kind of nomadic when we first got to Australia, I put all this stuff in storage, and it's down in Melbourne, and I'm a long ways away from there. But one of these, it is definitely on my list of things to do to get back down there. And once we get past episode 6 here, we've got another at least 3 seasons of stuff of John in his heyday doing what he did. Because, I for my money, this is the most important thing that there is, and it's the most important information people can know, and nobody's ever described it as well as John. So there's lots more. 1,500
100 hours of Jaws.
Oh, at least.
That's absolutely incredible. This is Fade to Black. This is our John Anthony West special tribute tonight. We have Chance Gardner live with us from Australia. We're going to continue the conversation with a little overtime right after this short break. Stay with us. I'll keep the phone lines open. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night, you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of. Ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at JimmyChurchRadio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hey, can we talk about something serious for a minute? Your age. Getting old has its perks. But remember, being a few years younger, you know, your hair was thicker, you didn't have so many wrinkles, that extra weight wasn't haunting you, and you just felt better. Well, we can't turn back the clocks and go back 10 or 15 years, but you can start feeling and looking 10 or 15 years younger with Nature's Youth RSF. It's a doctor-formulated daily supplement that helps your body maintain its peak performance and fight the aging process. Imagine sleeping better, looking better, and feeling better. See how Nature's Youth RSF has helped thousands of people just like you at natureyouth.com. Natureyouth.com. The holidays are coming. Imagine how it will feel when your family and friends are asking you what you did to look so good. Your secret will be Nature's Youth RSF. It's time to start looking better and feeling better. Learn more and order your Nature's Youth RSF at natureyouth.com. That's natureyouth.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want to thank Dr. Robert Schoch for the first hour coming in for our John Anthony West tribute. He passed away last week, and right now we're speaking with Chance Gardner live from Australia. Chance, of course, directed Magical Egypt 1 and 2. Now I have to ask the hard question here, Chance. I know that you spoke with John the day before that he left us, but when you got the news, how did you feel? Not how did you take it? How did you feel?
I lost my father last year to Parkinson's disease, and it was a weirdly parallel experience because, like most Western males, I just suppressed it and just didn't, like intellectually I knew it would happen, but I just wasn't going to go there emotionally. And just strange random times I'd see a picture of him or something, and it would just, the dam would burst. And Zeke, his son Zeke and his daughter Zoe and Celesta, his wife, they'd had a real hard go this year, and they really handled it well. I think that it didn't come as a surprise to anybody because from the time that he collapsed, he was going to the last minute. He was over in Egypt on that last tour, and he collapsed, and it was clear. And so they took him to the doctor, and they discovered he had, not one or two, but 40 tumors in his brain, and it passed. And remarkable that he was functional at all, considering the extent of the damage. And then even stranger, and speaking of conspiracy theories, he went to this guy, Russian doctor that's in America, and he had his cancer cured. The guy actually beat cancer, and then went down from pneumonia and kind of hospital illness, they call it. And so the family did a really good job of letting us know what was happening. And it was a wonderful thing because it was a very hard time for them, but they acknowledged that, we all kind of feel like we have some stake in John, and John, must be the guy with the biggest family in the world, because we all very much are this family brought together by this great man. And so I thought they really managed it well, and they kept it from being this horrific shock where we all kind of knew it was coming. And so then Zeke called us at a certain time and gave us a chance to get on the phone with them and say the last, things. And I want to tell everybody out there, and you, Jim, I'm sure you already know this, but you just don't appreciate the people in your life. And then all of a sudden, they're not there. And it's the worst thing in the world. If there's one little thing you didn't say, or if you had a harsh word and you didn't make it better, make things right and appreciate the people that are around you, because you just never know. Yeah,
you don't. You don't. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you with Magical Egypt and the way that was done, everybody understands his research into Egypt, Egyptology, ancient history when it comes to Egypt and the Sphinx, and of course Göbekli Tepe came into the mix a little bit later. We understand that, but later, our discussions, our conversations started to shift a little bit into world politics, economics, spirituality, and of course the near-death experience, the stars, the universe. He was deeply interested in that, and I'm not saying he was about to leave Egyptology behind, but that was certainly where he wanted to push his late work.
Yeah, it was a logical succession that, because of the focus of all of Egypt was preparing you for this transition out of your meat body. And so it was always very top of mind for him. But I was just talking with Zeke about this, his son, that it was so beautifully poetic that the last project he worked on, he co-authored a book that compiled all these hundreds and hundreds of stories of little kids being born, and they clearly remember the name. And I was John Williams, and I was a World War II pilot, and I died in this place, and my wife's name was Gertrude, and we lived at 123 Fake Street. And then it turned out there was a 123 Fake Street, and a Gertrude lived there, and she did lose her husband in the war, exactly the way this kid said. And there was so many in India. In the Hindu culture, it's a very ho-hum thing. It's not a big hurdle for them, but they in the West, obviously that's laughed at and considered ridiculous. And so I just thought it was so poetic that John steeped himself in this project that was specifically about how the transition out of life was this wonderful part of a continuity rather than this final thing. And the other thing about his political obsession had to do with Salente. That, you know, he was kind of the unspoken voice, well, the other voice of Salente's whole thing, the Trends 2000, ever since Y2K, basically. Maybe before that even. Megatrends. There was this massive bestseller way back that was Salente and West, and Megatrends, and then it became Trends 2000. And so they always collaborated on that. And as you know, Gerald Salente is a very vocal, verbal, very funny guy, just like John West. And so that's, I think, part of the more John spent around Salente, the more, and also he did not care for the Bush family. And I don't know if you call it egging him on or encouraging him, but he really wanted to do stand-up. I got as far, if I'd been to New York one more time, I really wanted to rent a room somewhere or have him do some open mic, because he had I kept telling him, get a stand-up act. You're hilarious, get a stand-up act going. And he never quite did that, but he was always working on his stand-up act. And that's, you know, why he had so many great, funny observations about politics. And he was very passionate about it. I mean, as we all should be. Did you ever see him and Gerald together? I've never been in the same room with Gerald. I sure have a high regard for him, but I've never actually, when you're around John, you hear about everything else that's going on in the rest of his life. And so I've heard millions and millions of stories about his interactions. Zeke worked for Gerald Salente for a long time, too. Right. I heard a lot about it. And obviously, it's hard not to see Gerald Salente. He's just everywhere these days. But I was never directly witnessed the two. But I know that they were like kids. You know, they just had this glee about taking, politicians down a peg. And when it comes, this is, I avoid politics on this show, and I avoid politics because my audience is on one side of the fence or the other or in the middle. But if I bring it up, I'm going to get my audience fighting amongst themselves. It's so divisive now. Right. It just is. John didn't care about that. He didn't care. He didn't care if he was going to lose a fan. You know, that's I want my money back on, Serpent in the Sky. You know what I mean? Well, so what? I'll send you a check. It was another weird thing that changed my operating system, because if you grow up in today's world, and especially Los Angeles, you know what a squirrely world Los Angeles is, there's not many people that broadcast their principles and then stick to them, because just like being in politics, show business is all about these insane wealthy sociopaths, and you just don't want to make them mad. So you end up not expressing your truth quite a lot. And then I met John, and it was literally like being around someone who just turned around and punched you in the face not for no reason, but when you deserved it, he'd turn around and give you a slap for saying something wrong. And that's why I keep saying, I've met few people that were able to retain their grace and dignity while dressing you down or contradicting you, because it's not something you do in polite society. But if you're a principled man, which is like a alien or like a 5-leaf clover nowadays, if you're a principled man, you're not going to let some nonsense fly and not address it. And I think that's why he was so pivotal and so he had such an effect on the people that he came in contact with. And I wanted to ask you the same question I asked Schoch, because I just think it's the correct one. When we talk about Ibiza and you think about John Anthony West running around Ibiza in shorts and sandals for 5 years, and knowing what Ibiza is all about, certainly that is the perfect place for him. What would you cut off your right arm to go back in time and hang out with John Anthony West in Ibiza? I sure would. I've spent so much time with him on the road from one city to another. And so I've heard literally minute by minute everything that happened to him in Ibiza. And the thing to remember about him in Ibiza was we have this John in our heads, that's this wonderful, lovable, old bearded man. But he was a good looking guy. You look at his son and see John was a dashing man. And he was thin, and he was just striking kind of Arabic-looking guy. You don't realize he had this kind of really sort of Arabic flair. He's not, but he had this real Arabic flair about him. And just really good-looking, plus the rapier wit. And this was back in the days of gentlemanliness and masculinity and all this stuff that just doesn't exist anymore. And but it's all when you see pictures from those days and you see what a dashing young guy he was, first of all, he must have been swimming in women. And secondly, his friends were all from theater and literature. So the reason he had that kind of confrontational style is, those old the soirees and from the 40s and 50s were just clever people hung around and did their best to seem like I forgot the name. Who's the gay guy from the Aesthetics? Oscar Wilde. Like, it was the age of Oscar Wilde witticism, and he was the best of them. He was just the best. The one-liners and the cleverness and the repartee, and it's a lost world. And it's one of the gifts that John gave me, was just to open up this perfect window. And there's not just so many stories that I can't tell on the air. I was just sitting here lamenting that all the best stories I wouldn't dream of saying over we'd probably both get arrested by the FCC if I got into too many details. But his life was wild and colorful and beautiful and poetic in this way that just doesn't happen anymore.
And what happened to him in Ibiza, and I've heard him tell these stories as well, but it was the astrology, the universe, the stars, Schwaller de Lubitsch, how he stumbled upon that book.
Yep.
And all of this aligned at the same time, of all places, in Ibiza, which allowed him to start to figure this stuff out. And he did that for us. That was our gift coming back. But if all of these things didn't happen at the same time, we wouldn't have gotten it.
Yeah. And who else was championing this? Like Robert Lawler. John, in fact, lived with Robert Lawler for a while at Lucy Lamy's place. Robert Lawler actually translated Schwaller's books from French into English. So that big, beautiful Temple of Man, if you look at the name of the author, it was translated by Robert Lawler. They interacted quite a bit, and they're such radically different people. And I have to say, I prefer John's book, Serpent in the Sky, to Robert's just perfect translation of Schwaller, because there's a style and this swagger and this thing that John put into Serpent in the Sky that certainly wasn't present in Schwaller. And John was the lens that John was the monocle that you wanted to be wearing when you looked at Schwaller de Lubitsch in the past. And the thing about this is, it's not just some academic thing from the past. This is the most important thing people can know. And John didn't realize it until he was well into it. And people don't know, John wrote a fantastic book that I think you've mentioned. It's called A Case for Astrology. And it was I have to say, I kind of scoffed at astrology until I read that book. And Jung was fascinated with astrology. Nowadays, the whole thing's kind of played down and made fun of. But it was just part of his nature that he had this thing. Oh, I'll tell you this really quick, Jimmy. When he was younger, he lived in New York, and he was a writer, and he used to work on those pulp fiction, like pulp comics, amazing stories and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Penny, like he literally got paid a penny a word or something, and there's no money at all. And he used to tell me he spent years in this terrible little basement boiler room, him and 4 other authors, just churning out on these, this is before electric typewriters and word processors, so those old cranky mechanical typewriters. And imagine this little room is like just white with cigarette smoke, because that was back when you could smoke in the workplace. Mm-hmm. And here's who the 4 authors were. Young John West, young Robert Heinlein, young Isaac Asimov, and young Ray Bradbury. Crazy. Those 4 cats sitting in a boiler room, starving to death and living on cigarettes and coffee, cranking out amazing stories for 1 penny a word.
Isn't that insane?
How about that?
I know. And he said one other thing. He said many things. But he said one thing that caught me, that he preferred the French versions of everything, and he would he didn't speak French, but so he would translate the French himself, but that Lawler's versions of it didn't have the passion, and it felt incorrect to him.
Yeah. It's like a Quran. You're not reading the Quran unless you read it in Arabic. And there's just something about French. German, too. I don't know if you know much about Aaron Cheek. Aaron Cheek is just a remarkable dude that's in Real Good Friend of Mine in episode 2. And Aaron does that. Aaron's a translator. He translates old esoteric and occult literature from German. And he says it too. If you read this stuff and you don't read it in the native language, it's inevitable that there's the nuances and the subtlety and all these references. There's no way to translate a metaphor, or, if you say cash me outside, or if you say that's what she said, that the stuff doesn't translate. And so there's lots of good reasons to learn French, but one of the best is to read Schwaller de Lübeck's in his native tongue.
Yeah, you bring up another good point. Who else was championing at that time? Nobody.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. This stuff, we would not have access, because there is this giant, organized, mounted effort to keep this stuff out of the public eye. When Schwaller de Lübeck's was on the ground in Luxor, Adrien Drieton, who was the king of everything in Egyptology back then, Schwaller was so incisive, and people don't know this. A lot of people don't know this. Schwaller was the head of the Theosophical Foundation, like Madame Blavatsky was, and Rudolf Steiner was, and
That's right.
Schwaller was actually head of the. And so he shows up, and he has quite a compendium of esoteric knowledge. And it's sort of like if you didn't know what sex was, and then you went to Hugh Hefner's house. When you look at Egypt and you're not steeped in esotericism, you're not going to understand the message. But if you are steeped in esotericism and you know your occult stuff, your symbolism, and you go to Egypt, Egypt just speaks to you. And so the Egyptologists hated Schwaller de Lübeck's. And so that famous line of Adrien Drieton, let's erect a common wall of silence around Schwaller's work. And if it weren't for John, that would have stuck, and we'd all be in some kind of horrific neo-fascist nightmare. It makes me wonder what else we don't know, Jimmy, because every military show you see, every UFO, every parallel dimension thing. I just watched Star Trek finally last night, and they discovered parallel universes. And the first thing that happens is, okay, that's classified. Nobody can know about that. So every interesting new thing that happens is instantly classified, and we're never going to hear about it. So it makes you wonder what else we don't know about. But I would venture to say, if it weren't for John West, we wouldn't be here having this conversation right now, and this whole optimism about the fact that there are these ancient instructions that are still there, and they're still broadcasting, and they're for you, Jimmy. They're for me. They're like this magic mirror that shows you how to scratch this thing that you can't even locate in physical space. And that might, I would hope, turn out to be this evolution-changing bit of information once it gets recognized for what it is. And we might never have had access to that if John hadn't spent his life taking it on the chin and being ridiculed for what he knew to be right.
Yeah, he said to me, well, I asked him, I said, when you take your tours and you're guiding people around, and there are going to be those that don't understand the symbolism. They're looking at the big rocks, right?
Yeah.
They're looking at, the statues, but they don't. He goes, Jimmy, you walk through, the symbolism is loud. It's noisy. It's everywhere. That's what I see, and it speaks to you. So many people
demands things of you. Yeah.
Right. He said so many people go to Egypt and they're looking at the pyramid, they're looking at the Sphinx, but they don't see the symbolism that is right in front of them on the walls. It's everywhere, and it's loud and it's noisy. And you're absolutely right. That's what he brought to the table. It's not just, big rocks, which is great. That's the logistical side of it, and I get that, but it's the symbolism, and that's what he brought to us, and we're just now starting to absorb it.
Yep. It reminded me this. In fact, this thing just popped into my head, or I just came across this thing, and I think I'm going to start the next episode with this quote. It was from Da Vinci, and he said, 3 kinds of people: people who see once they've been shown, and people who are never going to see.
That's it.
And is that just what more do you need to say?
I have another quote here from John. Few things in this world are more predictable than the reaction of conventional minds to unconventional ideas. John Anthony Wells.
His life was a sculpture to that sentiment.
Yeah, totally. Oh, just what an amazing show. I'm going to keep this going. I've just got like 5 minutes left. And so for you, let's just look back at the life of John Anthony West. What was the gift that he left for you?
The clarity of thought, the idea that authorities are presenting a facade. Nothing is completely known or completely understood, and that just because there's a common voice that all of science tells you that everything that you think is cool isn't real, everything you want to believe about ancient Egypt is all nonsense. He taught me challenge authority, or at least look into their claims. If you just look into the claims of science, it's not quite this unassailable monolith, and it's much more a tool of social engineering, and this tool like television to create homogeneity in minds. And it's not really about getting to the truth sometimes when it goes wrong. It's about territorialism, and people are fallible, and anybody who writes a book or becomes chancellor of a school, people do not like to be proven wrong once they've been acknowledged as an expert. And so for all kinds of reasons, never take things at face value. Look into them yourself. And especially for artists, this new series of Magical Egypt is for artists, and I'm perfectly okay if the artists have to then explain it to everyone else, because Egypt speaks visually and it speaks through aesthetics. And so artists go and they see this thing, and it's just there's no question about the message of Egypt. But then you leave and you get this cognitive dissonance because this heartfelt experience you had, everybody you meet said, no, that didn't happen. That's not real. That's a conspiracy theory. And if you connect and you do that thing where a pointer points when it sees a bird, or what a dog does when it sees a cat, some people see Egypt and they just instantly like, boing, 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 and there's something in it. It may well be a past life, experience that people don't understand why they're so attracted to Egypt. But almost every person that has this attraction and fascination to Egypt at some point encounters some I'll delete the expletive, but encounter some person who prides themselves on popping people's bubbles. And so if you are a person who sees a promise and a hope and something really remarkable peering out from the ruins of Egypt, don't let quote unquote authorities laugh at you and say you're insane, because history is a process of proving science wrong, and then setting up new science in its way. But the artists are the only ones with an intact right hemisphere, it seems, that are able to go outside of the box and make unusual connections, and all of these things that are sort of the antithesis of science but are the backbone of art. And so it was another, it was a huge part of my inspiration for the new series. It's just, here's what artists, we know what Egyptologists have to say. And so here's what some other fields who also have a right to talk about this, here's what other people say, and if you know Laird Scranton or Thomas Brophy or Bavall, as an engineer, it's the people who aren't in Egyptology that seem to make the most meaningful discoveries about it. And so everyone out there listening, you might be the next John West, because Laird Scranton, nobody ever heard of Laird. Laird found this little thing that started unraveling like a sweater. Thomas Brophy is a JPL trajectory math nerd, and he found some little thing, and all of a sudden he showed that the Egyptians knew exactly how many light years to Betelgeuse and Al-Natak and Al-Nalam, and these just weird little, it's always the exception to the rule that ends up being the door through which you enter this new paradigm. It's like we've got one side of the Rubik's Cube solved, and we're going to call that a win. But then there's this one little, oh, yeah, well, that's solved, but here's all these other things that don't make sense in that model. And so it makes you question the model, and all of a sudden you realize this wasn't quite as set in stone as the authorities would have us believe. And so the reason we're all fascinated with Egypt is there's just something in the collective psyche. We're looking to this place to reveal something that's going to change everything. And I think that the reason we know to look, besides just natural intuition, is that John showed how flimsy this facade of know-it-allism is, and to me made the world hopeful and optimistic, and certainly gave me a passion that I can pursue for the rest of my life. This place is a bottomless barrel of mysteries, but they're all solvable mysteries. They're puzzles. In fact, they want to be solved. They're puzzles, in the classic sense, and that's like human psyche. That's like catnip for the human psyche. Show me a puzzle and I won't stop until I finish it.
Know-it-allism. Thank you so much, Chance, for doing this tonight with us. You just made this evening so special for the audience and for myself. Thank you so much. Really quick, we've got to wrap. I've got to go. When is the next episode coming out of Magical Egypt 2?
If you knew the cast of characters that were involved, you'd understand that that's kind of a complicated question. My parts are all done. We're doing 5 and 6 right now. Let's say this. Within the next 30 days, episode 5 will be out, and episode 5 and 6 may come out at the same time, but Brad is a big part of the next episode, and he's inundated with Pearl Jam work. He just did something for Queens of the Stone Age that I was very impressed with. So a lot of the people, because they're all doing other things, it's hard for me to really beat anybody with a donkey stick and say, hurry up and finish this part. And so I don't mean to be squirrely, but within the next month, episode 5 will be available, and shortly thereafter, episode 6 will be done. And then we're just going right into a production on another 6. In fact, Jimmy, I'd sure love to have you participate in the next. We're doing a run of 3 with the Great Pyramids, which I know is a hot button for you. So I'd sure love to talk to you about you participating in that in some way.
Anything that I can do.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Chance. All the best
Thank
to you.
Jimmy. People needed to hear this, and good on you for taking the time to do this. And let's all remember we're a family now, and let's not lose touch because our patron, has moved on.
No, he's still with us. We've got a lot of work to do in his name. And do me a favor. Give my best to Venice.
Will do.
I'll talk to you. Chance Gardner, thank you so much, Chance. And this is how we're going to wrap our John Anthony West special tribute. And again, a special thanks to Dr. Robert Schoch for everything that he did earlier in the show. And again, go to robertschoch.com. I'm all choked up, okay? robertschoch.com and read everything that he's just posted about Jaws. Some very cool images there, too, as well. And, of course, magicalegypt.com. The best. Chance Gardner, thank you so much. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee, Dennis, and Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. I ran the wrong music, everybody, in case you didn't notice. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. And syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted in 2018 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. What a great show tonight. Thank you, everybody that came out and hung out for a little bit of memory on the life and times of John Anthony West. Until tomorrow night, I want everybody to be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.